the ice and fire demon god of Hogwarts. This video is purely for entertainment and does not infringe on copyrights or laws. The rights to the novel and image belong to the original author. We do not claim ownership. Don't like waiting and want to listen to this fanfic in full now? Subscribe to our Patreon, where you'll find the best fanfics. Chapter 751. You will bear all the blame until your injustice is redressed. 2 months. Dumbledore murmured in a low voice. He looked at the 4 people. In that case, it's time for me to make arrangements for my funeral. Listening to Dumbledore's words, Lin En frowned. His eyes stayed on the black lines on Dumbledore's body that contained a powerful curse. I don't know what he was thinking. Dumbledore looked at Professor McGonagall and said, Minerva, after I leave, this castle will be handed over to you. You will be the future principal of Hogwarts School of Witchcraft and Wizardry, and you will inherit everything I have in this castle. Professor McGonagall said sadly, Albus, you. Dumbledore shook his head and said, there is no need to mourn for me. Death is just the beginning of another great adventure. As long as I have left a mark in this world, and it is a meaningful mark, that is enough. Professor McGonagall remained silent. Dumbledore looked at Snape again and whispered, Severus, among the people in the headmaster's office, I feel the most sorry for you, but... Before Dumbledore finished speaking, Snape hid the sorrow in his eyes and said in a sarcastic tone, okay, Dumbledore, don't comfort me with your hypocritical tone anymore. You have been using me, haven't you? You used my love for Lily to make me protect the boy you want to cultivate, haven't you? Don't worry, Dumbledore, I will stay in the castle and protect him. You don't need to worry about it. Snape said coldly. Dumbledore smiled lightly. He did not refute Snape's words, but cast his eyes on Irina. Irina, you are the most talented little witch I have ever seen, and your ice magic amazes me. After I leave, I hope to leave you my magic notes, which record my research on the water prison curse. Ice and water have always been 2 different forms of the same substance, whether in the so-called physics of muggles, or in our magic. Perhaps my water prison curse can help you? Dumbledore said gently, and his words seemed to be earnest teachings to the younger generation. Looking at Dumbledore's blue eyes, Irina felt a little unwilling, and her ice blue eyes were slightly red. Could she really not change all this? Exclamation mark. Thank you. Irina's voice was a little choked. Professor Dumbledore. Dumbledore finally cast his eyes on Lin and said gently, Lin, you are the most mature of all my students. After I leave, I will leave Fawkes to you. You can use Fawkes' blood essence to perform blood fusion magic to enhance your own strength. Lin and Irina, the future of the magic world is in your hands. I hope you can defend the peace of the magic world. Dumbledore said so. Listening to Dumbledore's narration, Lin's eyes were extremely calm. He whispered, perhaps, you don't need to die. Even if death is a great adventure, but before that, I think you would rather witness the future of the beautiful magic world with your own eyes. Hearing this, Dumbledore was stunned, and he looked at Lin with an inquiring look. There seemed to be a flash of light in Lin En's dark red eyes, and he opened his mouth slowly. The vast majority of curses in the wizarding world are maintained by the magic power continuously, provided by the wizard who casts the curse. Professor Dumbledore, the curse on you is like this. And when the wizard who casts the curse dies, the curse will lose its magic supply, and will not be able to continue to grow and spread like a cancer. The person who is cursed only needs the simplest magic sweep to completely remove the curse. Lin En said lightly. Before Dumbledore could speak, Irina said worriedly, but how can we kill Voldemort within 2 months? Regardless of the fact that the Horcrux in Harry's mind has not been removed, even if it is removed, it will be difficult for us to completely kill him on Voldemort's home turf. Voldemort is a demon-level wizard, not an alchemical puppet. He will not stand still for us to kill. The best way to completely kill Voldemort is always to let Voldemort attack Hogwarts himself and use Hogwarts' home advantage to keep him forever. Irina said softly. Dumbledore, Professor McGonagall and Snape all looked over. Obviously, Irina's words were exactly what they thought. Facing the gazes of several people, Lin chuckled and said word by word, time-stopping formation. Lin's words were like a heavy hammer, hitting the heads of the other 4 people in the principal's office, making the 4 people suddenly enlightened. Yes, Since time is the only problem in killing Voldemort, and time is the biggest problem in prolonging Dumbledore's life, then why not just stop the time that falls on Dumbledore until Voldemort dies completely? Exclamation mark. They had not thought of this method before, because before all the Horcruxes were destroyed, they could not kill Voldemort, and they could not use time to save Dumbledore. But now, among the Horcruxes they know, the only one that has not been destroyed is Harry Potter. When the Horcrux in Harry's head is destroyed, Voldemort will be defeated. In this way, time is the only problem for them to kill Voldemort. They only need to stop the time on Dumbledore until Voldemort dies, then they can easily lift the curse on Dumbledore and prolong Dumbledore's life. That's it. After figuring it out, everyone suddenly realized it. Lin En said calmly, judging from the current situation in the British wizarding world, Voldemort will launch a war to attack Hogwarts Castle or the Ministry of Magic at the latest this year. Otherwise, Voldemort will never have any chance to rise again. Therefore, we only need to maintain the time-stopping formation for half a year at most, and during this period, we need someone to stay in the principal's office all the time, to replace the time-stopping formation with a new energy source, the instant sand. As Lin En spoke, he cast his gaze towards his own dean. Snape understood. He nodded slightly and said, I will stay here, and replace the sands of time on time, to ensure the operation of the time-stopping formation. Lin continued, and to the outside world, we will announce that Professor Dumbledore was assassinated. Only with the news of Professor Dumbledore's death can Professor Dumbledore not show up for such a long time without being suspected. Similarly, only with the news of Professor Dumbledore's death and the loss of a demon-level wizard at Hogwarts, Voldemort will have the courage to start a war and attack Hogwarts Castle. Otherwise, Voldemort, who cherishes his life, will not necessarily make the unwise decision to fight 3 demon-level wizards alone. And in the meantime, Professor Snape, you will bear the charge of fleeing after assassinating Dumbledore. Only in this way can you and Professor Dumbledore disappear from the magical world reasonably. You will bear all the blame until the war is over and your injustice is redressed. Lin said in a deep voice. Chapter 752, A Perfect Fake Death Plan and Haggard Professor Snape. Of course, Lin said softly, you can also refuse. We have no reason to ask you to do so. After all, before Lin could finish his words, Snape interrupted him and said lightly, no need to say more, I agree. Lin nodded slightly, and he looked at Professor McGonagall and said, in order for this fake death to be perfect, we will seal our memories. We will hide it from the world, and from ourselves. Before that, we need a custodian. She will keep our memories, and become the only awake person walking in the world. Of course, this also means more unspeakable things. Lin said calmly. Listening to Lin's plan, Professor McGonagall's eyes flashed with a touch of heartache. She understood what Lin's plan meant, and what it meant to be the so-called custodian and the awake person, but she was determined. Professor McGonagall nodded firmly and said, I'm willing to be the keeper. Lin nodded slightly. He looked at the hesitant Dumbledore and asked softly, so, what about you, Professor Dumbledore? Hearing Lin's words, Dumbledore finally stopped struggling and said, I agree with this plan. Well, Lin waved his wand, moved all the furniture and furnishings in the principal's office aside, and made a space. Please sit cross-legged in the middle of the formation. Thousands of golden threads constantly intersected in this small principal's office, forming a time-stopping formation. This huge alchemical formation was located in the center of the principal's office, covering Dumbledore's figure. Lin's left hand touched his waist, and a time converter with some missing time sand inside appeared in his hand. This time converter was the one they broke when they saved Astoria, and after resolving the crisis of the blood curse, Lin repaired the time converter and stored the remaining time sand in it again. This is also the reason why the sands of time inside this time converter are missing. Lin taught Snape the secret method of controlling the sands of time, and handed him the time converter, indicating that he should put the first grain of sands of time into the time-stopping formation that had already been refined, and only needed the sands of time as an energy source to operate normally. Snape stretched out his hand, and a strange ball of light shrouded between his fingers, protecting him from the influence of the power of time. He gently picked up a grain of sands of time and threw it into the center of the time-stopping formation. The next moment, the time-stopping formation began to operate, and Dumbledore, who was in the center of the time-stopping formation, was also frozen by the solidified time. His body, mind, soul, and the almost hopeless curse in his body all completely stopped as time stopped. Thank you for your hard work, Professor Snape. Irina came over. The house elves in the kitchen will deliver food to the principal's office regularly, so you don't have to worry about living resources. Lin En looked at Irina and said softly, "It's time to take out our memories, Irina. I hope that the day we take back our memories, we can see a better tomorrow for the magic world." Lin En and Irina simultaneously put their wands against their temples, and then a thin silver-white thread was pulled out from their temples and fell into the cloud synchronization memory bottle that Lin En took out. Unlike the copying method they used to take out memories in the past, this time they took out memories, which can be said to be a cutting method. They will no longer keep this memory until they accept it again. After taking out the memory, there was some confusion in the eyes of Lin En and Irina. On the side, Professor McGonagall took the cloud synchronization memory bottle handed over by Lin En and Irina, and with the authority of the deputy principal of Hogwarts School of Witchcraft and Wizardry, she called 2 house elves and sent Lin En and Irina back to their respective dormitories through the house elves apparition. I see. Lin En, who had recovered his memory, looked at Professor McGonagall. Then, Professor McGonagall, it's time to wake up Professor Dumbledore. Irina also looked over. After reading her own memory, she felt a surge of emotion. She was very happy to be able to save Professor Dumbledore's life and make up for this regret. Professor McGonagall smiled and nodded. She led the 2 out of the office and came all the way to the wall outside the sealed principal's office. Professor McGonagall walked up and gently tapped a brick on the wall with her wand. Then, just like the wall leading from the leaky cauldron to Diagon Alley, the stones on this wall flew up quickly and merged into the surrounding walls and disappeared, leaving the original passage and the stone statue that had long been moved to the side of the road. Lin, Irina and Professor McGonagall walked up the spiral staircase with ease, came to the door of the principal's office, and pushed open the door of the principal's office easily. Everything in the principal's office was exactly the same as Lin and Irina remembered. The furniture and furnishings that were moved to the side, Professor Dumbledore sitting cross-legged in the middle of the office, and the time-stopping formation that was shining with light. Professor Snape. Lin looked at Snape, who was dozing next to the time-stopping formation, and a touch of heartache flashed in his eyes. You know, the time-stopping formation consumes a lot of time sands. Under normal circumstances, the time-stopping formation needs to replace the time sands once every hour. In order to ensure that the operation of the time-stopping formation can be connected, Snape has to wake up every hour and throw new time sand into the time-stopping formation. This also means that in the past few months, Snape has not been able to get the quality of sleep he deserves, which makes Snape look haggard now. Thank you for your hard work, Professor Snape. Irina also walked over quickly, and she carefully helped Snape up. Snape slowly opened his exhausted eyes, and he asked in a hoarse voice, "Is he dead?" Lin nodded vigorously and said, "Voldemort is dead, Professor. Voldemort has died in our hands. Our efforts have not been in vain. Our plan has succeeded." Hearing Lin's words, Snape's eyes showed a look of relief, and the corners of his mouth also rose a pixel. Looking at Snape, who was so haggard, Professor McGonagall immediately called a house elf and asked it to take Snape to his office to rest. Chapter 753, Undercurrent Surge, The Immortal Mechanical Army. Lin En came to the time-stopping formation, and with a gentle wave of the wand in his hand, the glowing alchemy formation disappeared, like melting ice and snow. In the center of the time-stopping formation, Dumbledore seemed to have sensed something, and he opened his azure eyes and looked at Lin En through his half-moon glasses. "It's time to get up, Professor Dumbledore," Lin En said softly. "Voldemort has been destroyed, and the curse on you can be removed." Dumbledore stood up, and with a thought, the remaining curse power in his body was completely removed, and the black lines covering his body also disappeared, and his scorched hand returned to normal. "Thank you, Lin En," Dumbledore said sincerely. If Lin En had not proposed to use a time-stopping formation to stop the spread of the curse, and gave him the opportunity to remove the curse, he would have had no chance to witness the beautiful magic world in the future. Even though Dumbledore firmly believed that death was another great adventure, since there were still things in this world that he was nostalgic for, he was not in a hurry. After all, the train that symbolized this adventure would always stop at the station, waiting for his arrival. Dumbledore looked at Lin and Irina with a smile and asked softly, "Lin, you must have merged with Fox's Phoenix blood talent, right? Can I know what blood talent you have obtained? Irina, you must have also learned my water prison curse, right? Can I know what you have realized?" Hearing this, Lin and Irina looked at each other. Lin told Dumbledore that he had obtained the fire of Nirvana, could release flame phantom like a phoenix, and that the flame he mastered had the same therapeutic effect as the phoenix tears. And Irina showed Dumbledore the water prison curse and ice prison curse that she had studied based on the water prison curse. After learning that Lin and Irina had gained so much, Dumbledore's eyes were full of brilliance, and he also showed a sincere smile. Dumbledore woke up from the time-stopping formation. He regained control of Hogwarts Castle and announced his return to the entire British magic world. The British magic world fell into a carnival again, and the intensity of this carnival was no less than the day when Voldemort was eliminated. The chocolate frogs in Honeydukes were snatched away by fanatical wizards just to get Dumbledore's cards from the chocolate frogs. Some wizards even took advantage of the situation and made a batch of portraits or figurines of Dumbledore's appearance to make a quick buck. The elimination of Voldemort and his forces, as well as the return of Dumbledore, made the entire British magic world full of laughter. The British magic world has 3 Demon King level wizards in charge. In the eyes of everyone, the British magic world has entered a long-term peace, and no one can threaten the existence of the British magic world. But is this really the case? Maybe, not necessarily? Exclamation mark. At this moment, in the meeting room of the Magical Congress of the United States of America, Mr. Chairman, our mechanical army has expanded to 10,000 people, and 10,000 mechanical soldiers are on standby at any time. Josue smiled and looked at Ayers Craig, the chairman of the Magical Congress of the United States of America, and said lightly. Ayers nodded. He looked at Josue not as if he was looking at his subordinates, but with a bit of awe and admiration. He immediately said, "In this case, it is time to start our plan. The magic world only needs a magic government, and that magic government will be the Magical Congress of the United States of America." After Josue created an all-chemical chip that could carry the consciousness data of wizards, the Magical Congress of the United States of America approved the plan to create a mechanical army. Now, this mechanical army composed of 10,000 mechanical soldiers created by alchemists will become an immortal army. After nearly 100 years of searching by the Magical Congress of the United States of America, there are as many as 10,000 wizards like Elabik who have upgraded their consciousness data and become the operators of mechanical soldiers. Alchemists who have mastered the technology of mechanical soldiers have been able to produce more mechanical soldiers on an assembly line, and the alchemy chips that store the consciousness data of wizards can also be artificially reproduced by alchemists headed by Josu. This means that the consciousness data of Elabik and others will be preserved forever. Even if the mechanical soldiers on the battlefield are completely destroyed, even the alchemy chips carrying the consciousness data are destroyed. But the alchemists in the underground laboratory of the Magical Congress of the United States only need a few minutes to install the artificially reproduced alchemy chips into the new mechanical soldiers, presenting an alternative resurrection. This makes this mechanical army in a sense indeed achieve the so-called immortality. As long as the Magical Congress of the United States is still there, and the underground laboratory is still there, these mechanical soldiers can be resurrected from the laboratory continuously. The magic world is used to comfort. The only violent agency controlled by the Ministry of Magic in most countries is the Aura Office, and the number of auras in those Aura offices is mostly only a few dozen. Even under the deterrence of Voldemort, the British Ministry of Magic, which has been expanding itself, has only hundreds of auras. However, the current MACUSA has a mechanical army consisting of 10,000 mechanical soldiers. The combat power of this mechanical army has exceeded the sum of the ministries of magic in all countries except the United States. Mechanical soldiers ignore the 3 unforgivable curses and other black magic targeting the soul, and are not affected by curses and other physical functions that damage carbon-based life. They can also cast spells like normal wizards. This allows the mechanical soldiers to have the combat power to fight against multiple aura level wizards on their own. With such a large army, the MACUSA will naturally breed the ambition to annex the magic world and become the overlord of the magic world. This is also inevitable in human nature. In fact, as Nicholas Flamel once mentioned, the human alchemy plan of the MACUSA was launched 100 years ago. But unlike today's almost blatant implementation, human alchemy was not generally accepted by the officials of the MACUSA at that time. It was only a private decision made by some high-level officials of the MACUSA, which made the laboratory hidden very deeply. So deep that even Grindelwald did not realize the human alchemy experiments hidden underground in the American Magic Congress. There seemed to be a light flashing in Josu's eyes. He chuckled and said, "The magic world is obsessed with the appearance of peace, but they don't know that under that appearance, undercurrents have long been surging." Chapter 754. She would never allow anyone to break this hard-earned peace. So, Mr. Josu, in your opinion, a senior official of the Magic Congress looked at Josu and couldn't help asking, which magic world do you think we should start with? Hearing the words of the senior official of the Magic Congress, everyone in the conference room turned their eyes to Josu, as if waiting for his answer. Facing the question of the senior official, Josu smiled slightly. He placed his hand on the world map of the magic world on the table, and the place where his hand fell was London, England. Josu murmured, "The war in the British magic world has just ended, and the duel between the Demon King level wizards has also broken the information barriers of various magic worlds. It is widely known that the British magic world with 3 Demon King level wizards will also be the most powerful magic world in people's eyes. With the mechanical army in hand, the only obstacle to our plan is the British magic world with 3 Demon King level wizards sitting in it. Similarly, as long as we get the British magic world, our journey will be unimpeded," Josu said in a deep voice. The high-ranking officials of the Magic Congress all nodded secretly, as if the 3 Demon King level wizards who were in charge of the British magic world as mentioned by Josu were no longer capable of defeating a country alone, but were just ordinary people. Ayers Craig, the president of the Magic Congress of the United States, also nodded, acknowledging the plan. But soon, Ayers asked in a tone of inquiry, "So, Mr. Josu, how can we defeat the Demon King level wizards in the British magic world?" The high-ranking officials of the Magic Congress did not feel anything wrong when their president asked an alchemist in such a humble tone, as if everything was supposed to be this way. "Mr. Chairman," Josu smiled unceremoniously, "if I'm not mistaken, you seem to be not far from becoming a demon level wizard?" Facing Ayers' tacit silence, Josu continued, "Don't worry, before the war really begins, I will improve the general of our mechanical army, that is, the mechanical soldier number 1 operated by Mr. Ellerbick. I will try my best to make him have demon level combat power." Hearing this, Ayers frowned slightly. He said softly, "If that's the case, then before you complete the transformation of Mr. Ellerbick, we have to conduct preliminary tests, and that requires an opportunity, or an excuse." Kyosu said casually, "Let's use the Wiltshire explosion." This explosion threatened the International Statute of Secrecy, but the British Ministry of Magic was unwilling to hand over the culprit. In order to defend the International Statute of Secrecy, the American Magical Congress had no choice but to threaten with force. As for the dead demon level wizard, what was his name? Voldemort? Oh, who cares? Who knows if that was the culprit that the British magic community casually pushed out in order to shirk responsibility. Anyway, Voldemort is dead and can't argue for himself, right? Kyosu said with a chuckle. His relaxed look was like he was talking about something interesting. A week later, after contacting Lin, Irina and Dumbledore in advance through a special two-way mirror, old Barty took the Flu network to the fireplace in the principal's office. The 3 people who received the news sat around the desk. Their expressions were very serious. Especially Lin and Irina. They did not expect that only a week after the war started by Voldemort ended, and they had not even had time to graduate from Hogwarts Castle, a new crisis had already arrived. Dumbledore still looked so gentle, but even old Barty could sense the sharpness in his azure eyes. "Old Barty, tell me in detail what you mentioned in the two-way mirror." Old Barty nodded and said in a deep voice, The Magical Congress of the United States used the Wiltshire explosion incident to believe that we intentionally shielded the culprit and ignored the international statute of secrecy and then sent troops to the border of our British wizarding world in the name of defending the statute of secrecy. I have sent auras from the Aura office to confront them, but what is incredible is that the wizard army sent by the Magical Congress of the United States has more than 10,000 people. Even the Death Eaters summoned by Voldemort only have 3,000 or 4,000 people. Old Barty said in an unbelievable tone, and there was even a bit of fear in his eyes. You know, even the 3,000 or 4,000 Death Eaters summoned by Voldemort, most of them are just cannon fodder, and any aura can wipe out a large group of them. But the army of the Macusa that arrived at the border of the British wizarding world was different. The wizards of the nearly 10,000 wizard army were all well trained, and the strength displayed by each wizard far exceeded that of the auras of the British Ministry of Magic. This is very terrifying. Dumbledore frowned slightly, and he asked in a deep voice, has the ministry explained the matter of Voldemort to the Macusa? Moreover, as the president of the International Confederation of Wizards, I have never received any information from the Macusa about sending troops to defend the statute of secrecy. Old Barty said bitterly, of course I explained it to them, but they refuted us by saying that Voldemort was dead and there was no evidence, and refused to withdraw troops from the border of the British wizarding world. Lin said in a deep voice, it seems that the Macusa is not interested in wine. To defend the international statute of secrecy, let itself have a legitimate reason, but its real purpose is to annex the British Ministry of Magic. I'm afraid that the Macusa's goal is the entire wizarding world. Even though several people had already guessed it in their hearts, they still stared after hearing Lin's words. Irina's cold voice rang out. It is obvious that the Macusa does not care who is the culprit of the Wiltshire explosion. They just want to make their attack on the British wizarding world more reasonable. From the information provided by Old Barty, the Macusa already has an army of 10,000 people, all of whom are aura level or above. With such power in hand, human nature determines the ambition of the Macusa, which is definitely not limited to the small piece of land of the American wizarding world. Irina said coldly, and a murderous look flashed in her ice blue eyes. After so many years, it was not easy to kill Voldemort and bring peace to the British wizarding world. She had thought about how to spend the rest of her life with Lin, but the Macusa wanted to interfere. She would never allow anyone to break this hard-earned peace. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 755, Goblin Rebellion. The British wizarding world is facing internal and external troubles. Old Barty had a few cold sweats on his forehead. He guessed that the purpose of the Macusa was to use this explosion to make some excessive demands, or get something from the British wizarding world. But using this as an excuse to start a war and annex the entire wizarding world, starting from the British wizarding world, was something that Old Barty didn't even dare to think about. Then what should I do? Old Barty asked. Even though he was very powerful, he was still terrified when facing a wizard army of 10,000 people. Lin said calmly, maintain the status quo and let the auras confront the wizard army of the Macusa. As long as they don't step into the territory of the British wizarding world, everything will be fine. If they choose to step into the British wizarding world, then we can regard it as the Macusa declaring war on the British Ministry of Magic, and we, the Demon King level wizards, will have a reason to take action. Lin said in a deep voice. No problem. Old Barty agreed immediately. Then I'll go back to the ministry to take charge of the situation. Old Barty was about to go back from the fireplace, but Lin stopped him and said, wait, there is another matter that also requires the decision of you as the Minister of Magic. Old Barty asked, what is it? Lin said, I need the Ministry of Magic to give the DAME legitimacy, or in other words, the status of the orthodox wizard army in the British wizarding world. Hearing Lin's words, Old Barty's eyes lit up, and he tentatively asked, what do you mean? Lin affirmed, yes, set up a new department in the Ministry of Magic, named the Wizarding Army Operations Department, responsible for guiding and commanding the Wizarding Army. At the same time, appoint the DA Army as a wizarding army under the jurisdiction of the British Ministry of Magic, and appoint members of the DA Army who are still studying in Hogwarts Castle as reserve forces of the Wizarding Army. Old Barty continued softly. In this way, the British wizarding world will have a wizarding army of its own in name, even if the number of this wizarding army is not as large as that of the Aura's office. But with the DA Army of Hogwarts Castle as the reserve force of the DA Army of the Ministry of Magic, the Wizard Army of the Ministry of Magic, that is, the DA Army, will form a complete chain, and the DA Army will also maintain its original vitality and vigor. Old Barty concluded. In this way, under the leadership of Old Barty, the Minister of Magic, the DA Army became a legal wizard army in the British wizarding world, and was governed by the British Ministry of Magic. The 7th year DA Army members who graduated this year with Lin En will also become the first batch of soldiers of this regular wizard army in the British wizarding world. As for Neville Longbottom, the future leader of the DA Army, he was appointed as the instructor of the DA Army Reserve of Hogwarts Castle, and the general of the regular DA Army in wartime. Although Neville still has a year to graduate, if the war really comes, then as the leader of the DA Army, it is not a problem for him to ask for a long-term leave in Hogwarts through the channels of the Ministry of Magic. At the same time as the DA Army's regular army and reserve forces were formally established, Old Barty also sent nearly 2/3 of the Auras from the Aura office to the border to confront the mechanical army of the American Magical Congress. On the surface, the American Magical Congress kept clamoring to use force to resolve this incident that threatened the international statute of secrecy, and let those mechanical soldiers and the British Auras stationed at the border constantly rub against each other, and even a small-scale battle occurred. But this mechanical army seemed to be waiting for something, and did not cross the border of the British magic world. Just when the people in the British magic world thought that the war would break out at the hands of the American Magical Congress, another war broke out unexpectedly in the British magic world. After analyzing that the purpose of the American Magical Congress was to launch an annexation war against the British magic world, the goblins in Gringotts chose to take this opportunity to launch a rebellion. It must be said that the timing of these goblins to choose to launch a new round of goblin rebellion was really clever. If the goblins rebel before the American Magical Congress arrives at the border, then the Ministry of Magic and Hogwarts will suppress them with thunder and leave no room for them. If the goblins rebelled after the war that the MACUSA was about to launch, then the British magical community, which was in the midst of a fierce battle, would turn back and deal with this rebellious race. However, these goblins chose to rebel when the MACUSA was about to launch a war and the magic world of the two countries was on the verge of a war. Nearly 2/3 of the Auras in the Aura office were stationed at the border, and even the attention of the wizarding public was attracted by the tens of thousands of wizard troops of the MACUSA. This made the interior of the British magic world extremely empty. Not only that, if the MACUSA saw the goblins launching a rebellion and took advantage of the civil strife in the British magic world to invade the British magic world, then facing the simultaneous attack of the goblins and the mechanical army, it would be difficult for the British Ministry of Magic to divide its troops into two groups to stop them. In such a situation of internal and external troubles, what can the British Ministry of Magic do? Exclamation mark. Thousands of goblins rushed out of Gringotts holding all chemical guns made by the Demon King level alchemist Arnold. In just half a day, these goblins took Gringotts as a starting point and occupied 2/3 of Diagon Alley. Even Nocturne Alley, which borders Diagon Alley, was completely occupied by these goblins armed with all chemical guns in less than an hour, and the dark wizards in Nocturne Alley were killed and wounded by these goblins. In the 2/3 of Diagon Alley occupied by goblins, all the shops were looted by these goblins, and the wizards who were originally in the shops were killed or escaped. Hundreds of wizards and civilians died under the alchemical guns of these goblins, and the streets of Diagon Alley were flooded with blood. This was all wizards' blood. All the wizards and civilians who approached Diagon Alley without knowing it died tragically on the spot under the killing of these rebellious goblins. The Goblin Rebellion had only been launched for less than a day, but the number of wizards in the British wizarding world who died at the hands of these goblins exceeded the total number of wizards who died in the wizard war launched by Voldemort. If it weren't for the timely intervention of Weirly's arms shop in Diagon Alley, which distributed military munitions to the wizards who came to Diagon Alley for help, allowing them to organize their forces to resist the attack of the goblins. I'm afraid the entire Diagon Alley would have become the goblins' possession. Being in Weirly's arm shop, Fred and George knew about the Goblin Rebellion earlier than the Ministry of Magic, and they also knew very well that, if this Goblin Rebellion, which lasted for 100 years, was not curbed in time, how much damage it would cause to the British wizarding world. Chapter 756 Use your life to buy time. Inspired by the two major events of the Ministry of Magic and Hogwarts joining forces to defeat Voldemort, and Dumbledore's return, the wizards in the British wizarding world are more united than ever before. They believe that the Ministry of Magic, which has a new Minister of Magic, and Hogwarts, which has 3 Magic King level wizards, will not leave these goblins alone. They believe that wizards will eventually defeat these rebellious goblins. This has led more than 2,000 wizards to spontaneously come to Weirly's arm shop, hoping to help Fred and George intercept the goblins swarming out of Gringotts in Diagon Alley, and prevent them from entering the British wizarding world to cause chaos. In order to protect the safety of Diagon Alley, the largest commercial street in the British wizarding world, Diagon Alley is always protected by protective magic such as the anti-apparition charm. Unlike house elves, goblins do not have the ability to cast spells without a wand and the ability to move beyond the limitations of the anti-apparition charm. This meant that, if the goblins of Gringotts wanted to spread the war to every corner of the British wizarding world, they had to leave Diagon Alley on foot and leave the range covered by the anti-apparition charm. However, Diagon Alley only had 2 entrances and exits, and one side of the Leaky Cauldron was completely blocked by Old Tom, the owner of the Leaky Cauldron. Even the curse breakers of Gringotts could not break it. After all, the entrance to Diagon Alley from the Leaky Cauldron was a product of magic, not alchemy. This forced the goblins to choose to break out from the other side, but the Weirly arm shop located in the back half of Diagon Alley became the hurdle that they could not cross. More than 2,000 wizards in the British wizarding world were holding various alchemical firearms. Even though the alchemical firearms in their hands were made by Fred and George, they were far less powerful than those made by the Demon King level alchemist Arnold. However, the alchemical guns made by Fred and George can kill goblins with one strike, and the alchemical guns in the hands of goblins can also kill wizards with one strike. What's the difference? Exclamation mark. It is true that the alchemical guns in the hands of these goblins have the lethality to threaten the Demon King level wizards, but they are not Demon King level wizards. You use a cannon to kill a mosquito and use an electric mosquito swatter to kill a mosquito. The cost is different, but the result is no different. No one expected that the first modern war in the wizarding world, which was mainly based on hot weapons, would happen in this small Diagon Alley, and it was a war between wizards and goblins. The streets in the middle of Diagon Alley turned into a hail of bullets, and countless metal storms swept across this narrow street, followed by blooming blood flowers. Fred and George anxiously used a special 2-sided mirror to contact Lin and Irina while staring at the battle situation in Diagon Alley. However, after a few minutes of fighting, nearly 200 wizards died in Diagon Alley. These wizards were ordinary people who came to Weirly's arm shop spontaneously after learning about the Goblin Rebellion. They were not well trained aurors and naturally did not have enough combat experience. This made them unable to defeat the goblin army that had planned in advance, even though they had alchemical guns in their hands, as they could not use them skillfully. Under this continuous exchange of fire, the thousands of goblin troops did not suffer any casualties. They hid behind the bunkers in a well-trained manner and fired in the direction of Weirly's arm shop in an orderly manner. If Fred and George had not applied a lot of protective magic to the Weirly arm shop when they were decorating it and added a lot of defensive alchemical arrays, I'm afraid that this house would have been reduced to ruins under the bombardment of the alchemical bullets. Seeing their own wizards fall one by one, while the goblin army suffered almost no losses, Fred and George's hearts were bleeding. Every wizard standing here is using his or her life to buy more time for the British wizarding world. At the same time, inside the goblin army, a goblin general with many gorgeous gems inlaid on his armor ordered in a cold voice, "Push the alchemical red cannon made by Master Arnold over here. We can't wait any longer." Hearing the words of the goblin general, the goblin deputy general behind him widened his eyes. The goblin lieutenant said, "Alchemical red cannon? If the alchemical red cannon opens fire, I'm afraid that with one shot, the entire Diagon Alley will be reduced to ruins, right? What we want is an intact Diagon Alley. How many gold galleons will this cost us? Upon hearing this, the Goblin General slapped the lieutenant and cursed. Stupid. Master Arnold said that we must break out of Diagon Alley within a day, disperse into the British wizarding world, and switch to guerrilla warfare. Otherwise, once we are dragged into Diagon Alley by the wizards in that shop and they wait for the support of the Demon Lord level wizards, then we will all be buried here. What's the point of talking about gold galleons? The Goblin General cursed angrily, and he looked at another goblin, and ordered it to get the alchemical red cannon. After the goblin took the order and left, the Goblin General looked coldly in the direction of Weirly's arm shop, and a bloodthirsty smile appeared on the corner of his mouth. Wizards who resist stubbornly, let you witness the fireworks that are enough to kill the demon level wizards at the last moment of your life. The goblin did not let the Goblin General wait too long. It and another goblin pushed the alchemical red cannon over, and behind it, there were 3 goblins holding an alchemical shell each. Seeing these goblins coming, the Goblin General smiled cruelly and shouted, "Load, aim at those wizards who resist stubbornly, and fire. Fire immediately." Hearing this, these goblins did not dare to neglect it. They worked together to load a shell into the alchemical red cannon, and completed the aiming. The Goblin General slowly walked over, pressed his palm on the operation panel of the alchemical red cannon, injected magic power into the alchemical red cannon, and performed the ignition operation. The surrounding goblin army all sneered and looked towards the direction of Weirly's arm shop, waiting for those stubborn wizards to turn into ashes and dissipate between heaven and earth along with most of Diagon Alley. The muzzle of the alchemical red cannon burst into dazzling light, and the huge magic fluctuation spread out. The pressure released by the alchemical shell before firing alone made the surrounding goblins feel breathless. However, just as the alchemical red cannon was about to fire, an invisible wave swept over the alchemical red cannon and the entire goblin army. As the invisible wave enveloped the area of hundreds of meters, the constantly flashing light of the alchemical red cannon was instantly extinguished. The next moment, a golden stream of light flew from the horizon and instantly pierced through the alchemical red cannon, blowing it into pieces all over the sky. Chapter 757. The power of forbidden magic is invalid? Exclamation mark. Arnold, who plundered the power of the stars. Despicable goblins, how dare you? A figure bathed in flames suddenly appeared in the sky above Diagon Alley. Streams of light transformed from the power of the stars burst out from the hands of the figure, smashing all the heavy weapons of the goblin army. Lin En's dark red eyes seemed to be burning with flames. If he had been a second late, the entire Diagon Alley, including Fred and George in Diagon Alley, and more than 2,000 wizards and people in the British wizarding world, would have been buried here. Lin En pressed the magic forbidden scepter in his hand again. The next moment, the invisible wave covering the area of hundreds of meters disappeared without a trace. However, purple flames ignited from the air. The purple flames in the sky were like a falling sun, carrying a high temperature that was enough to destroy the goblin army and slowly press towards the goblin army below. If the sea of fire created by the purple starfire succeeds, then these thousands of goblin warriors will be vaporized in an instant and completely disappear between heaven and earth. But just when the high temperature was about to fall on these goblins, a golden beam of light came from a distance and exploded fiercely in front of Lin En, interrupting the purple starfire and blowing Lin En away. When Lin En stabilized his body in the air and looked at the attacker, the anger in his eyes became even worse. Arnold, you dare to lead the goblins to rebellion? Do you really think I dare not exterminate the goblin clan? Lin En roared angrily. Yes, the attacker who released the golden beam to attack Lin En was the only Demon King level strongman among the goblins, the alchemy master Arnold. Facing Lin En's questioning, Arnold looked at him deeply and then said in a cold voice, Lin En, you did too much. First, you forced Gringotts to suffer such a huge loss, and then destroyed the alchemical weapons I had accumulated for 100 years. If the goblins of Gringotts still have some blood, they will choose to launch a holy war at the most appropriate time to retake everything that the goblins should have. Obviously, the time has come. There is a philosophy in the ancient and magical East that a cunning rabbit has 3 burrows. I'm well aware of it. I know that, if all the alchemical creations are placed in one place, it is easy to be caught in one net. Therefore, what you destroyed that day was only 1/5 of my arm's reserves. The goblins are ready, but I don't know if the wizards have made corresponding preparations, Arnold said in a cold voice. When he raised his hand, he was once again armed with various alchemical equipment. Seeing this, Lin En took out a brand new magic forbidden scepter from his pocket without hesitation and activated it. The invisible wave spread out again, and the power of the forbidden magic descended equally on every living being in Diagon Alley. All magic power was suppressed, and even the magic power flowing in the alchemy array was frozen like frozen water. The dozens of alchemical creations worn by Arnold also dimmed. Just when Lin En was about to wait for Arnold's alchemical equipment to become ineffective, and then use the power of the stars to easily kill him, an accident happened. Although the alchemical equipment on Arnold's body was dim, it did not completely lose its effect, but the power was weakened by about 60% as the magic power solidified. How is it possible? Lin En couldn't help but be a little shocked. You know, the magic power of the forbidden magic scepter that he improved can suppress most of the magic power of even the Demon King level wizard. Not to mention that these alchemical equipment are just the alchemical creations of the Demon King level alchemist, not the Demon King level alchemist himself. Looking at Lin En's shocked eyes, Arnold seemed to enjoy it very much. Arnold sneered and said, "Since that day, I risked the collapse of my Demon King level foundation, and recalled the memories that you forced me to forget with the forgetfulness spell. The forbidden magic power, the product of alchemy can, in turn suppress the power of alchemy. This contradictory phenomenon almost made me fall into the realm of the Demon King. But fortunately, I survived and got the only solution to the forbidden magic power, which is the power from outside the world. The power from outside the world that I plundered using alchemical creations can also be stored in alchemical creations in the form of energy. As the energy source of alchemical creations, this gives me the capital to fight against the forbidden magic power." Arnold laughed, but his old eyes were full of publicity and madness. Hearing Arnold's words, Lin En frowned. He looked carefully at the alchemical equipment on Arnold's body. He discovered that the light emitted by those alchemical equipment under the suppression of the forbidden magic power was exactly the same as the power of the stars. The energy flowing in the alchemy array is no longer magic power, but the power of stars from outside the world. "I see," Lin En murmured in a low voice, and a hint of fighting spirit flashed in his eyes. "Then let me see who has a better grasp of the power of stars between you and me." Even though Arnold also has the means to ignore the forbidden magic power, Lin En has no intention of removing the effect of the forbidden magic staff. The forbidden magic power can suppress Arnold and him, and can also suppress the wizards and goblins on the ground. After losing the blessing of alchemy, the alchemical weapons in the hands of both parties will be no different from the hot weapons of muggles. The range covered by the forbidden magic power is only half of Diagon Alley, which means that when the wizards on the ground leave the range of Diagon Alley, they can restore the ability to cast spells. The alchemical firearms in the hands of wizards and goblins have lost the blessing of alchemy and those special enchantment properties. This makes the bullets fired by the alchemical firearms in the hands of the goblins no longer fatal, unless they hit the opponent's vital points and kill them in one shot. The injured wizards will not die immediately. They can leave the range of Diagon Alley and heal their injuries through healing magic, after regaining the ability to cast spells. But the goblin army is different. They are blocked in Diagon Alley, and Gringotts is shrouded by the power of forbidden magic. This means that these goblins can only heal their wounds through physical means after being shot. But how can gunshot wounds be healed so easily? Exclamation mark. Even the highly skilled muggle doctors have to do their best to snatch the wounded from the hands of death, let alone these goblins who are accustomed to magic and despise muggle science. Exclamation mark. As one grows and the other shrinks, the goblin army finally suffered casualties, and the number of casualties is still increasing. This war between the wizards of the British magic world and the goblins of Gringotts in Diagon Alley has also gradually turned from one-sided to evenly matched with the advent of the power of forbidden magic. Chapter 758. The cold and hot blood will rise here and fall here. At the same time, at the border of the British magic world, in the mechanical army of the American Magic Congress, countless data streams constantly passed through the eyes of each mechanical soldier. Intelligence has been detected that there is a goblin rebellion in Diagon Alley, the British magic world. The source of intelligence is the Magic Congress British Diagon Alley Intelligence Network. Sending intelligence feedback to the Magic Congress. Received the order of the Magic Congress, obey the command of General Elebic, and attack the British magic world. Soon, a red light flashed through the eyes of the 10,000 mechanical soldiers, and then a path was made in this huge square formation, and a figure that looked much taller slowly walked through these mechanical soldiers. This figure was Elebic, who was operating the mechanical soldier number 1. Elebic walked to the front of the mechanical army square formation, and he looked at the hundreds of wizards who were confronting him hundreds of meters away. Among the hundreds of wizards, nearly 60% were auras from the British Ministry of Magic, and the remaining more than 100 wizards with childish faces were elite members of the DA Army who came to support after learning that the American Magical Congress had sent troops to the border. Under the leadership of Voldemort, the DA Army became the orthodox wizard army of the British wizarding world, which also meant that the DA Army must play its due role in every war that the British wizarding world participated in, or in any war that might occur. Therefore, the more than 100 elite members of the DA Army, the youngest of whom was only in the 4th grade, arrived at the border of the British wizarding world without hesitation, and confronted the 10,000 mechanical soldiers. Even though the wizards in the DA Army and the Aura office added up to only 300 to 400 people, while the other side had 10,000 people, they had no room to retreat, as the entire British wizarding world was behind them. At this time, the leaders of these Auras and DA Army elite members were Scrimgeour, who had recovered from St. Mungo's Hospital for magical injuries and diseases, and Neville, the leader of the DA Army who came from Hogwarts Castle. Scrimgeour is undoubtedly the most powerful person in the Aura office, but Neville is not the strongest among the elite members of the DA Army. At Lin's suggestion, after completing the Newts exam and graduating from Hogwarts School of Witchcraft and Wizardry, Irving and Astoria did not immediately withdraw from the DA Army, but retained their status as elite members of the DA Army. And now, Irving and Astoria have also come here. The two who master ancient magic are undoubtedly the most powerful people in the British magic world. Elebic's eyes swept through the wizards of the British magic world one by one, and a string of data flashed in his eyes. The old chemical scanner built into his body was constantly analyzing the threat level of these wizards. Mechanical Army, attack the British magic world. Operation Mission, annihilate the enemy garrison. Everything is dedicated to the American Magical Congress. After completing the scan and analysis, Elebic's eyes flashed with golden light, and a message appeared in front of all the mechanical soldiers. Everything for the Magical Congress of the United States of America. Everything for the Magical Congress of the United States of America. As Elebic gave the order, the 10,000 mechanical soldiers all used alchemy to transmit their messages. They brazenly crossed the border of the British magic world. Seeing this scene, the wizards on the side of the British magic world shrank slightly. They raised their wands and were about to stop these invading mechanical soldiers. However, before they could speak, the mechanical army launched an attack on them. In this huge square formation, these mechanical soldiers all raised their left arms at the same time. The next moment, a golden beam of light broke through the air from their palms and headed straight for the wizards of the British magic world. Thousands of golden beams of light cut through the sky and arrived in front of these auras and the elite members of the DA Army in an instant. Damn. Super armor protection. The British Ministry of Magic attaches great importance to this mechanical army. These auras sent here are all the most elite people in the aura office. They reacted immediately and jointly released a powerful armor spell. The elite members of the DA Army also waved their wands and joined in the construction of the powerful armor spell in front of them. The giant shield turned into a hemispherical cover to protect everyone inside, and thousands of golden beams continued to bombard the giant shield. The continuous impact caused the shield and the ground of the entire battlefield to vibrate violently. However, in a few breaths, dense cracks appeared on the giant shield. More than 4/5 of the golden beams exploded on the giant shield, shattering the powerful armor spell. The remaining nearly 2,000 golden beams continued to attack everyone. Ice cold and hot blood will rise here, and will also fall here. Looking at the golden beams that looked like a meteor shower, Astoria could not feel any beauty. A resolute look flashed in her eyes. She whispered, and endless bloodlight rose around her. The enchanting bloodlight bloomed in the air, turning into a blood-colored barrier that covered the sky and the earth, protecting everyone inside. The golden beams of light continued to bombard the blood-colored barrier, but they were completely absorbed by it like a drop of water falling into the sea, leaving no trace. Astoria seemed to have completely blocked the first wave of attacks from the mechanical army, but the careful Irving noticed that Astoria's face became paler as the golden beams of light bombarded the blood-colored barrier. Obviously, the blood-colored barrier released by Astoria, its ability to absorb external attacks, is at the expense of Astoria's physical condition. After realizing this, Irving looked at the mechanical army with murderous intent. All those who want to hurt Astoria should die. Thunder wabi sabi, Irving roared, and purple flashes kept flashing in his eyes. In an instant, the sky above the entire battlefield was covered by endless thunder clouds, and the blue-purple lightning fell like thunder, blowing hundreds of densely stationed mechanical soldiers into ashes. Even though the bodies of these mechanical soldiers were made by alchemy and had the strength to withstand the explosion spell, they were unable to withstand the thunder of the mighty heaven under Iwin's furious attack. Seeing the casualties of the mechanical army increasing under the bombardment of the blue-purple thunder, Ellerbick frowned. Ellerbick looked at Iwin coldly and swung the metal magic wand made by alchemy in his hand violently. A huge magic power swept up, and it actually forcibly dispersed the thunder cloud. Chapter 759, Ellerbick, the Demon King level wizard of the mechanical army. Facing Iwin's shocked eyes, Ellerbick waved his wand again, and a disarming spell with a diameter of nearly 3 meters broke through the air and headed straight for Iwin. Seeing this, Astoria jumped in front of Iwin without hesitation. She slashed her left arm with the wand in her hand, and a series of blood beads broke through the air, turning into a blood blade that cut everything. Facing the disarming spell cast by Ellerbick, on the battlefield, everyone's eyes were focused on Astoria's blood curse and Ellerbick's disarming spell. Everyone believed that Astoria's blood blade would indisputably break the disarming spell and defeat Ellerbick. You know, judging from Astoria's performance in the Battle of the Department of Mysteries and the defense of Hogwarts, she, who mastered the ancient magic blood curse, was almost invincible under the Demon King level wizard. Especially in terms of the single target lethality of the ancient magic blood curse. Even Iwin, who mastered the ancient magic thunder spell, was not her opponent. In the eyes of most wizards in the British magic world, Astoria is truly the first person below the Demon King level wizard. Just when everyone was looking forward to Astoria's victory over the general of the wizard army of the American Magic Congress, a scene beyond everyone's expectations happened in front of them. The blood blade released by Astoria was annihilated by the red light containing huge power at the moment of collision with the terrifying disarming spell, as if it had never existed. The power of the disarming spell was only weakened by 50% to 60%, and its remaining power hit Astoria's delicate body fiercely, smashing her into the ground, and the magic wand in her hand broke. Astoria! Irving exclaimed in disbelief. He ignored his own safety and hugged Astoria, who was almost embedded in the ground. Bright red blood appeared at the corner of Astoria's mouth. The disarming spell just now had caused her severe damage, and even the magic power in her body became disordered. Irving carefully helped Astoria up, and his cannibalistic eyes were cast at Ellerbick, with incomparable resentment and a touch of imperceptible despair in his eyes. Demon King level wizard. Irving hugged Astoria tightly and whispered. Even though Irving and Astoria's magic level was infinitely close to that of a Demon King level wizard, and they were only one step away from becoming a Demon King level wizard. But as long as they were not at the Demon King level, they would be no different from ants in the eyes of a Demon King level wizard. What's more, the feeling that the American Demon King level wizard gave him was even more terrifying than the Voldemort he saw in the Battle of the Department of Mysteries. Looking at Ellerbick, who showed the magic level of a Demon King level wizard, the elite members of the DA army gnashed their teeth, and Neville took out the special two-sided mirror without hesitation, wanting to ask Hogwarts for help. They knew in their hearts that only the Demon King level wizards in the British magic world could defeat Ellerbick. Likewise, they finally understood. Yes, if the MACUSA did not have the fighting power of a Demon King level wizard, how could they dare to invade the British magic world with 3 Demon King level wizards? Exclamation mark. Ellerbick looked at Irving and Astoria indifferently, his face expressionless, as if he had no human emotions. He slowly raised the metal wand in his hand and pointed it in the direction of Irving and Astoria. Endless magic power quickly gathered at the top of Elabic's wand like a vortex, and countless alchemical arrays were running rapidly inside Elabic's wand. The next moment, a golden beam of light with a diameter of 10 meters broke through the air. This beam, which was enough to kill a Demon King level wizard, carried a terrifying murderous intent, and attacked Irving and Astoria. While releasing the golden beam, Elabic waved his wand again, and set up an anti-apparition spell that could cover the entire battlefield in an instant. Damn it. Protect them. They are the future hope of the British wizarding world. Seeing this scene, Scrimger, who led a group of aurors, was furious. He cast a killing curse in the direction of Elabic. With the strength and talent that Irving and Astoria have shown now, it is almost inevitable that they will become Demon King level wizards. Scrimger will never allow the 2 Demon King level wizards who will protect the British wizarding world in the future to die in the cradle. Hearing Scrimger's words, more than 30 auras around him waved their wands, using Irving and Astoria as the targets of the spell, and cast a powerful llama spell. Even though they knew in their hearts that the powerful llama spell they released was nothing in the face of the attack of the Demon King level wizards, they always had to do their best. Sensing the Avada Kedavra curse coming straight at him, Elabic remained calm and did not even dodge, allowing the green beam carrying endless murderous intent and resentment to hit him. However, after being hit by the Kedavra curse, Elabic was like nothing had happened, and there was no change on his body, as if the Avada Kedavra curse was fake. Scrimger's pupils suddenly dilated, and he looked at Elabic in astonishment and disbelief. You know, the judgment of the Avada Kedavra curse, that one will die if touched, is the nightmare of countless people. It is precisely this judgment, that one will die if touched, and there is no counter curse, that makes the Avada Kedavra curse on it as the first of the 3 unforgivable curses. Even a Demon King level wizard will die on the spot, after being hit by the Avada Kedavra curse. This is an indisputable fact. However, right in front of Scrimger, this established fact was broken. The general of the Wizard Army of the Magical Congress of the United States, the Demon King level wizard, actually ignored the Avada Kedavra curse. Just when Scrimger was almost stagnant, the golden beam that attacked Irving and Astoria actually split into dozens of tiny golden beams in the air. The target of those tiny golden beams was the auras who cast the powerful llama spell for Irving and Astoria. Those auras never expected that this terrifying golden beam would suddenly turn around and attack them, which made them unprepared and hit by the golden beam that arrived in front of them in the blink of an eye. The terrifying destructive power shattered the bodies of more than 30 auras, blasting them into pieces of meat. Not only that, this golden beam with a diameter of 10 meters was still bombarding Irving and Astoria, who had no power to resist in front of the Demon King level wizard. Chapter 760, War and Fire. Elabic has only power. Looking at the beam that almost dyed the whole world golden, Irving and Astoria were both somewhat desperate. They didn't think they had the feeling to resist the full force attack of the Demon King level wizard. What is the concept of the full force attack of the Demon King level wizard? Exclamation mark. Just refer to the purple gold moonlight that Irina used to cut Voldemort in half during the Battle of the Department of Mysteries. The purple gold moonlight that bloomed in the Department of Mysteries that day, even if it was hundreds of meters away and not the target of its lock. Irving and Astoria could feel the sharp edge and shivering chill, and the power of this golden beam in front of them, even compared with the purple gold moonlight during the Battle of the Department of Mysteries, is only stronger than it. Irving and Astoria have not yet stepped into the threshold of the Demon King level wizard. How can they resist this terrifying attack? Exclamation mark. At this critical moment, Iwin felt a faint warmth coming from his waist. It was the white chess piece of night that he kept close to him, the pocket anchor. The next moment, a white light flashed by Iwin's side, and the bone-chilling ice also bloomed, as if to freeze the entire space. The flying speed of the golden beam that was bombarding was constantly slowing down, and finally it was frozen in the air, and then shattered, turning into golden light, and dissipating in the air. After seeing the snow-white figure beside them, Iwin and Astoria's faces showed some joy. "Senior Irina," Astoria called out happily. Irina turned around. She nodded softly to the two of them, and then looked at Elabic hundreds of meters away, and a hint of murderous intent flashed in her ice blue eyes. Her figure suddenly stopped in the air, and a sharp ice crystal spear flashed in her hand, with the tip of the spear pointing directly at Ellerbic. Your mission is to drive the invading American wizard army out of our territory, and my opponent is that American Demon King level wizard. Irina's cold voice rang out on the battlefield, and the temperature of the entire battlefield dropped a lot. There was even a storm wrapped in ice and snow on the battlefield. Hearing Irina's words, Irving and Astoria, as well as every elite member of the DA army, were full of fighting spirit on their faces. Andy took a step forward. He did not make any sound, but his magic wand kept shooting orange-red light in the direction of the mechanical army. Andy's most powerful explosive spell exploded in the square formation of the mechanical army. In an instant, dozens of mechanical soldiers were blown apart, revealing their metal skeletons. Neville held a silver sword in his hand and his other hand held his magic wand. Powerful fluorescent spells exploded in front of those mechanical soldiers like flash bombs, forcing those mechanical soldiers to adjust the brightness of their mechanical eyeballs to see Neville's position clearly. But Neville took this opportunity to sweep out the silver sword in his hand, cutting off the head of the mechanical soldier in front of him. The alchemical thread connecting the head and body of the mechanical soldier was cut open, cutting off the control of the alchemical chip in the head of the mechanical soldier on the body of the mechanical soldier. Unlike real wizards, the only weakness of the mechanical soldiers is their heads. Only by cutting off the control of the alchemical chip in their heads on the body can they be truly killed. Otherwise, even if the fatal parts such as the heart of these mechanical soldiers are shattered, they cannot be killed. Harry, Ron and Hermione also came to the battlefield as elite members of the DA army. During the battle, Harry found it incredible that the disarming spell he was proud of had no effect in front of those mechanical soldiers except for the basic repulsion effect. Harry didn't know that the metal wands in the hands of these mechanical soldiers were completely embedded in the hands of the mechanical soldiers in the form of physical and alchemical arrays, and became one with the palms of the mechanical soldiers. No matter how powerful Harry's disarming charm is, it is impossible to treat the enemy's palm as a weapon and disarm it, right? Exclamation mark. However, the elite members of the DA army are not without means to kill these mechanical soldiers. The slashing charm invented by Snape not only has the characteristic of leaving dark magic in the wound, making it impossible to recover except for the counter curse, but also has far more lethality than the slicing charm with similar attack methods. Even ordinary explosive charms can withstand several rounds of mechanical soldiers, but in front of the slashing charm, they are no different from wizards, and the invisible blade can often easily cut their bodies. In the battle, the Auras and the elite members of the DA army also found that these mechanical soldiers are difficult to kill, and their weakness is the head where the alchemical chip is placed. Therefore, the powerful spells released by the Auras are all aimed at the heads of these mechanical soldiers, and the slashing charm of the elite members of the DA army is also aimed at cutting off the heads of the mechanical soldiers. On the battlefield, blood blades broke through the air, which was enough to threaten the blood blades of the Demon King level wizards, and could kill dozens or hundreds of mechanical soldiers in an instant. The thunderstorm gathered again above the battlefield, and blue-purple thunders fell from the sky, each of which could completely blow up a mechanical soldier. Above the thunderstorm, Irina also started a king-to-king battle with the mechanical soldier number 1, Ellerbic. Irina's ice blue eyes stared at Ellerbic tightly. She felt the strong power of the alchemy array from him. It was the same power she had felt from the goblins Arnold and Lin En. Could it be that this Demon King level wizard of the American Magic Congress also promoted to the Demon King level wizard with the attainments of alchemy? Exclamation mark. From Arnold, who was promoted to the Demon King level with the attainments of alchemy, Irina could sense the difficulty of this kind of Demon King level existence. If it weren't for Lin En's use of the forbidden magic power to suppress Arnold's alchemical array, and even almost shattered its foundation, it would have been difficult for them to defeat Arnold so easily in the secret room that day. However, the Ellerbic in front of him was not as cunning as Arnold that day, and was good at using various alchemical creations to strengthen his power, nor was he like Lin En who could refine alchemical arrays out of thin air for combat. Ellerbic's fighting style was always so simple, like a set machine, and every move in the battle was so fixed and so rigid. It was as if Ellerbic had the power of a Demon King level wizard, but did not have any combat experience that a Demon King level wizard should have. Chapter 761. He personally said that all the goblins in Britain must be wiped out. At the same time, in Diagon Alley, under the suppression of the forbidden magic scepter, the battle between Lin and Arnold, relying only on the power of the stars, officially began. The beams of light transformed by the power of the stars hit Arnold's direction accurately like a meteor shower, and between the meteor showers transformed by the golden beams, there was a faint flash of purple fire. Even though the purple star fire is the product of the combination of star power and magic power, and the magic power will be suppressed by the forbidden magic power. But just like Arnold's alchemy array, when Lin replaced all the energy sources of the purple star fire with star power, the weakened purple star fire can burn normally in the forbidden magic field. Looking at the golden beams and purple flames that were attacking, Arnold quickly extended a pair of mechanical wings behind him, and the mechanical wings took him to dodge and shuttle between the golden beams. Indeed, Arnold was far inferior to Lin, who had been exposed to the power of the stars for nearly 2 years, in terms of using the power of the stars. But for Arnold, the power of the stars is not a means of war, but an energy source that replaces magic in the alchemical array. Arnold's proficiency in the alchemical equipment he refined is much higher than Lin's proficiency in using the power of the stars. Arnold dodged these golden beams with ease and controlled dozens of mechanical arms extending from the mechanical armor and took out a large number of alchemical weapons from the mechanical box on his back. 10 mechanical arms holding silver shields crashed into the Zhui Xianhuo. The moment these silver shields collided with the Zhui Xianhuo, they actually burst into golden light. The power of the star power extended from the surface of the shield and turned into a huge energy barrier. The remaining more than 30 mechanical arms held alchemical guns and fired in the direction of Lin. In an instant, the terrifying metal storm arrived in front of Lin. Arnold's alchemical equipment that can carry and fight made Lin En feel extremely difficult. Helplessly, Lin En had to disperse a forbidden magic power that descended on Diagon Alley and use the flame apparition to avoid the attack of the metal storm. The golden red flame ignited from Lin En's hand. As Lin En performed the flame apparition several times, the fire of Nirvana also appeared in the Weirly Arm shop. The fire of Nirvana turned into the shape of a phoenix, penetrated the bodies of all the wounded in the Weirly Arm shop, and healed all their injuries. The black and red forbidden magic fire ignited on the ground of Diagon Alley. This flame carrying the forbidden magic power that can distinguish between enemies and friends once again suppressed the effect of the alchemical weapons of the goblin army. The alchemical weapons of the Weirly Arm shop can be used normally, but the alchemical weapons of the goblins have lost all their effects under the suppression of the forbidden magic power, which reversed the situation on the battlefield again. The wizards of Weirly's Arm shop stepped out of the store and advanced towards the bunker, where the goblin army was. Under the suppression of the powerful metal storm, the goblin army had to fight and retreat, retreating towards Gringotts. Seeing that Lin En was still thinking about intervening in the battlefield below while fighting with him, Arnold was immediately furious. Arnold, who had recovered all his strength, did not hesitate to control the mechanical arms around him and poured the terrifying firepower towards the wizards who stepped out of Weirly's Arm shop. Seeing this scene, Lin En waved his hand and summoned a ball of golden red flame. The flame phantom ability of Nirvana fire can not only be used on oneself, but also on others or other objects. Although the bullets poured out of Arnold's alchemical firearms have been blessed by the alchemical array, they themselves are real objects. The Nirvana fire that suddenly lit up performed the flame phantom, and it actually wrapped up tens of thousands of alchemical bullets in the air and disappeared. As another golden red flame ignited above the goblin army, the bullets that had disappeared before actually poured out from the flames, falling in the direction of the goblin army like a hail of bullets. With just this one blow, more than half of this huge goblin army was killed or injured. Arnold is worthy of being a demon king who has been promoted to the level of alchemy. The wave of offensive he released at will is enough to cause such heavy casualties to the goblin army. Congratulations, Arnold, you destroyed your own army with your own hands. Lin said with a sarcastic smile. If the one standing opposite Lin was a demon king level wizard like Voldemort, or if the alchemical weapons controlled by Arnold were like the civilian munitions of Weirly's Arm shop, firing not bullets enchanted by alchemical arrays, but spells, then Lin would really be at a loss. After all, as a Demon King level wizard, Arnold wanted to massacre the wizards of Weirly's arm shop, so how could Lin easily stop him? Exclamation mark. But the ammunition of Arnold's alchemical firearms is metal bullets that exist in the physical sense. Metal bullets do not have their own consciousness, and they cannot resist the flame apparition acting on them. This allows Lin's flame apparition to successfully restrain Arnold's alchemical weapons. After most of the goblin army was shot dead by Arnold's firepower, the goblin rebellion has already come to an end. Fred and George led the wizards of the British wizarding world who spontaneously came to Diagon Alley, and the only more than 200 Aurors who came from the Ministry of Magic, and were on standby in the Auror's office, and rushed towards the remnants of the goblin army. One after another, red lights representing the disarming spell broke through the air, and fell on those fully armed goblins, knocking them off their armor, and the bullets of the alchemical firearms followed, piercing the heads of those goblins whose helmets were judged as weapons, and removed by the disarming spell. The goblin army, which had been slaughtered so much under Arnold's hail of bullets, had already lost its morale, and faced with the wizard's charge, they had no will to resist. Except for a small number of goblins who chose to fight to the death. Most of the goblins chose to lay down their weapons and surrender. In their view, as long as they chose to surrender, those weak and kind wizards would choose to let them go, and then sign a treaty with them to restore peace in the magic world, just like the last time the Goblin Rebellion was suppressed. These goblins had beautiful ideas, and even the Aurors who captured these surrendered goblins and the wizards in the British magic world thought so. But the goblins forgot that the person who made the final decision was old Barty Crouch, the Minister of Magic, and old Barty was Lin's man. As for Lin, he personally said that the goblins in the UK would be exterminated. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 762, Fairies are banned in the British wizarding world. After the crowd captured the surrendered goblins and recaptured Diagon Alley, the more than 200 Aurors rushed into the lobby of Gringotts. They sealed the entrance to the underground vault and the lobby of Gringotts, blocking the goblins who wanted to support inside. They worked together to maintain the effect of the magic seal, waiting for the duel between Lin and Arnold to end in the sky above Diagon Alley. The more than 2,000 wizards and people from the British wizarding community who came spontaneously left under the guidance of the Aurors, which could also prevent them from being injured in the aftermath of the duel between Lin and Arnold. After the crowd in Diagon Alley was evacuated, and the Aurors used magic to seal the lobby of Gringotts to prevent new goblin warriors from joining the battlefield, Lin no longer had any worries. He attacked Arnold with all his strength. The black spear appeared in Lin's hand, and the existence of the flame apparition made Lin more and more defenseless, and his movement trajectory could not be detected by Arnold in advance. A series of spears carrying fierce fire pierced out, and Arnold's metal armor suddenly showed a lot of damage. Dozens of mechanical arms extending from the metal armor behind Arnold were cut off by the black spear that swept out, and even the pair of mechanical wings were shattered on one side by the black spear, leaving only the other mechanical wing to carry Arnold to maintain flight with difficulty. However, with only one mechanical wing left, Arnold's flying maneuverability became worse and worse, which also made Arnold attack more and more frequently. Not long after, Arnold's other mechanical wing was also cut off, which made Arnold unable to rely on the mechanical wing to accelerate himself, and could only rely on his own Demon King level magic to forcibly stay in the air. However, Arnold's flying skills all rely on mechanical wings. It has never thought that its mechanical wings will be destroyed one day, which makes it like a living target in the air without the assistance of mechanical wings. Lin's figure continued to appear around Arnold with the flame apparition. The dark spear stabbed out quickly. Every time a spear hit Arnold, a disposable defensive alchemical equipment would explode on Arnold's mechanical armor. Arnold didn't know how many disposable defensive alchemical equipment he wore, which made Lin unable to completely take it down for a while. But there was always a limit to the alchemical equipment on Arnold. As the alchemical equipment on his body exploded one by one, the fear and despair in Arnold's eyes became deeper and deeper. Arnold was good at alchemy, but his magic was extremely weak, just like the mechanical single soldier number 1 Elebic, who had strength but no skills. This made it impossible for Arnold to break through the anti-apparition spell in Diagon Alley, let alone escape from Lin's hands, who mastered the flame apparition. Arnold's combat ability almost all depends on those all-chemical equipment and all-chemical weapons, and when these all-chemical creations can't compete with Lin En, Arnold becomes the weakest among the Demon Kings. As the last disposable defensive all-chemical equipment on Arnold exploded, Lin En shattered the mechanical armor on Arnold with one shot, and pierced Arnold's forehead with another shot, nailing him to death in the air. Since the goblins have chosen to rebel, then Gringotts, the wizard bank, and the financial system of the British wizarding world should also return to the embrace of wizards. Lin En's figure slowly fell to the ground under the bath of flames, and he walked into the lobby of Gringotts. Lin En looked at the magic seal that the auras had jointly arranged and signaled the auras to unlock it. At the moment the magic seal was lifted, before the goblins inside rushed out of the door leading to the underground vault, a group of purple myrtle skyfire emitting blazing high temperature rushed into it like a hungry wolf that had been hungry for 4 or 5 days. The temperature of the purple starfire could even ignite seawater, let alone these weak goblins! Exclamation mark. These goblins were vaporized under the high temperature of the purple starfire without even being able to scream. Lin En took out the alchemical detector, and this time, the object of the alchemical detector was the life form of the entire Gringotts underground vault. Following the track of the underground vault, Lin En rode the alchemical minecar down, and the purple starfire also burned. Under the scanning of the alchemical detector, all the goblins stationed in the underground vault were nowhere to hide. Wherever Lin En passed, all the goblins were vaporized under the high temperature of the purple starfire and completely disappeared from this world. In just over half an hour, Lin En returned to the lobby of Gringotts. He took a look at the more than 1,000 goblins captured by the auras, and he sneered, and the red and black fierce fire swept up, slaughtering these goblins in the screams and pleas for mercy. Return to the Ministry of Magic and report back. Also, have the Ministry of Magic send someone to take over Gringotts. Lin looked at the auras, who were also stunned and horrified, and said softly. After explaining, Lin disappeared from the spot with a flame apparition. This goblin rebellion was suppressed in less than a day, but the British magic world's action to massacre goblins has not ended yet. As a member of Lin's organization, Old Barty naturally implemented Lin's philosophy, that is, to exterminate the goblins who betrayed wizards, provoked wars, and even killed thousands of innocent wizards and civilians in the British magic world. The goblins in Gringotts are not all the goblins in the British magic world, and after this rebellion, the British Ministry of Magic will send auras to capture and kill all goblins in the British magic world. The British Ministry of Magic cannot control the magic world of other countries, but within the scope of the British magic world, the Goblin clan will be completely destroyed, and every goblin in the British magic world will be exterminated. From now on, goblins are banned in the British magic world. American Wizarding World, the American branch of the International Confederation of Wizards. As the president of the International Confederation of Wizards, I believe that the MACUSA sending troops to invade the British wizarding world is illegal and the reasons are not justified. Therefore, as the president of the International Confederation of Wizards, I demand that the MACUSA withdraw its troops immediately. Your actions have seriously violated the Treaty of the International Confederation of Wizards, and have seriously harmed the relationship between the wizarding worlds of various countries. Dumbledore, who had come all the way from afar, looked serious. He spoke in a deep voice to the wizard representative of the American branch in front of him. Hearing Dumbledore's words, the wizard representative looked fearless. He did not seem to take Dumbledore, the president of the International Confederation of Wizards, seriously. He said contemptuously, "Mr. Dumbledore, the decision of the MACUSA is to defend the International Statute of Secrecy. As the president of the International Confederation of Wizards, why do you want to stop us? Your attitude should be more correct. Our actions are absolutely just." Chapter 763, Mechanical Individual Soldiers Combat Model, Seamless Action. Dumbledore's eyes were filled with anger. He said in a low voice, "Justice? You are provoking a war in the wizarding world. You are committing war crimes." Looking at the stubborn wizard representative in front of him, Dumbledore fired a Vulcan to open the way for him. If he were not the president of the International Confederation of Wizards, his words and deeds would represent the attitude of the International Confederation of Wizards. As a demon-level wizard, how could he lower his face to talk to this wizard representative who did not even have the fighting power of an aura? At the same time, the Magical Congress of the United States of America. A huge magic screen was projected on the wall of the conference room. The magic screen showed the vision of Mechanical Soldier number 1, that is, Ellerbic. More than a dozen high-level members of the Magical Congress of the United States of America in the conference room were observing everything on the battlefield through Ellerbic's perspective. And sitting at the front of the conference room were as the chairman of the Magical Congress of the United States of America, and Josu, the chief designer of the Human Alchemy Project. Looking at the battle between Ellerbic and Irina on the magic screen, Kyosu said softly, "Mr. Chairman, be prepared to let the mechanical army withdraw, and the International Confederation of Wizards can also start to relax." Hearing Kyosu's words, Ez was stunned. Even the high-level officials of the American Magic Congress around him looked over in disbelief. Ez asked, "Mr. Kyosu, what do you mean? Aren't we going to take the British magic world as a starting point to get the entire magic world?" Hearing this, Kyosu just chuckled and asked back, "Mr. Chairman, and everyone, do you think that the mechanical single soldier number 1 with only the combat power of a Demon King level wizard is enough to sweep across the British magic world?" Ez and others frowned. They lowered their heads and pondered for a while, and all shook their heads slowly. Judging from the picture on the magic screen alone, the mechanical single soldier number 1 could not even defeat the witch who was promoted to the Demon King level wizard with the attainments of ice magic, let alone sweep across the British magic world. Kyosu said calmly, "Today's mechanical soldier number 1 has great strength, but is unable to bring it into full play. If we want its combat power to reach the expected value, we must use enough combat experience data to train the combat model of the mechanical soldier. By feeding data, we can improve the combat experience of the mechanical soldier in a short period of time, but that is limited to ordinary mechanical soldiers. Mechanical soldier number 1 has the combat power of a Demon King, which means he needs the combat experience data of a Demon King wizard to train his combat model. This time the mechanical army's attack on the British wizarding world is just to obtain some data on all chemical experiments through the war between the Demon Kings, and to test the intelligence of the Demon King wizards in the British wizarding world. In this regard, our actions are seamless. The Goblin Rebellion and the war in Diagon Alley allowed us to obtain the combat experience data of the Demon King wizard Lin En, which is enough for us to build his combat model. The combat data of mechanical soldier number 1 at the border of the British wizarding world has enabled us to obtain the combat experience data of the demon level wizard Irina level, which is enough for us to build her combat model. As for Albus Dumbledore's combat model, we took the opportunity to record it and analyze the corresponding combat experience data as early as during Grindelwald's rebellion. With the combat experience data of these 3 demon level wizards, we can integrate them and train a combat model unique to mechanical soldier number 1. Kyosu stood up and paced back and forth in front of a group of senior executives. He spoke loudly, and the fanaticism in his eyes became more and more intense. Listening to Kyosu's plan, everyone in the conference room felt excited. Ez asked, "So, Mr. Josu, this war to attack the British wizarding world is just a test. However, we have already started. How should we deal with the counterattack of the British wizarding world?" Josu sneered and asked, "Mr. Chairman, what are you afraid of? We attack the British wizarding world for the righteousness of resolving the leakage of the International Confederation of Wizards, and our representatives in the International Confederation of Wizards will agree to the request to withdraw before the International Confederation of Wizards issues the final ultimatum. In this way, we can easily obtain the corresponding all-chemical experimental data and retreat safely. All we lose are some mechanical individual soldier carriers, and our all-chemical laboratories can create more at any time. As for the counterattack of the British wizarding world, what reason do they have to counterattack? Aren't they afraid of being accused of waging war?" Josu said nonchalantly. Ez nodded thoughtfully, and then asked, "Mr. Kyosu, in your opinion, when should we start a real war?" "I'm talking about a war of annexation, to swallow up the entire British wizarding world." Kyosu glanced at him, chuckled and said, "What are you in a hurry for, Mr. Chairman? War is a violent means with no room for redemption. Before launching a war, we naturally have to make adequate preparations. From the data sent back by Mechanical Soldier number 1, there is a wizard who is good at weather spells and a witch who is good at blood curses in the wizard army of the British wizarding world. They have the potential to be promoted to Demon King level wizards. And counting the Demon King level wizards already in the British wizarding world, we need at least the combat power of 5 Demon King level wizards to have the capital to start a war. We spent a lot of alchemical materials and various costs to transform Mechanical Soldier number 1, and it will take at least a year to replicate the combat power of Mechanical Soldier number 1. Counting the existing Mechanical Soldier number 1 and you, Mr. Chairman, who is about to be promoted to the Demon King level wizard, it will take us 3 years to have the Demon King level combat power I mentioned, and a combat model that can defeat any Demon King level wizard in the British magic world. Of course, if there are other accidents at that time, such as the great alchemist Nicolas Flamel from the French magic world, the existence that stands at the top of the wizards, I will also take action personally, Josu said in a deep voice. Ayres noticed that, when Josu mentioned the great alchemist Nicolas Flamel, his eyes seemed to flash with a sinister light. Ayres looked at the senior executive in charge of the affairs of the International Wizarding Confederation and ordered, "Let our representatives agree to the withdrawal request. We will withdraw within an hour, and this hour is the time for us to obtain the corresponding combat experience data." Chapter 764 The goblins' warning turned into the most severe retribution, and fell on their heads. At the border of the British magic world, a stream of data flashed in Elabic's eyes. He lowered his eyes slightly and looked at Irina in front of him with an even stronger fighting spirit. He only had 1 hour, and he had to force out Irina's full fighting power within this hour, even at the cost of the destruction of this body. Everything is dedicated to the Magical Congress of the United States of America. Looking at Irina holding an ice crystal spear and stabbing at him, Elabic turned his left palm outward, and a golden lightsaber stretched out with Elabic's palm as a hilt. The golden lightsaber and Irina's ice crystal spear collided fiercely, and a violent explosion sounded, and even people hundreds of meters away subconsciously covered their ears. Violent explosions continued to explode from the place where the golden lightsaber and ice crystal spear collided, but the golden lightsaber and ice crystal spear were so evenly matched that neither weapon could do anything to the other. Seeing this scene, Irina's eyes became more vigilant. In the magic world, few wizards would use cold weapons to fight, but the guy in front of him who seemed to have advanced to the level of Demon King Wizard with his alchemy attainments was able to use lightsabers to fight so skillfully. Irina quickly retracted the ice crystal spear and swept it out fiercely. The purple moonlight swept through the air like a streak with the tip of the spear and went straight to Elabic's neck. Elabic seemed to have completely given up using the metal wand to fight. The metal wand was unconsciously integrated into his arm, and the golden lightsaber blocked Irina's attacks one after another under Elabic's swing. For Elabic, both the golden lightsaber and the metal wand were tools for him to guide the magic power in his body and transform it into external lethality. After deflecting Irina's ice crystal spear, Elabic's body exploded backwards, and then the golden lightsaber in his hand swept out. A huge wave of magic power gathered on the edge of the golden lightsaber. In an instant, the golden sword energy condensed by the magic power broke through the air from the golden lightsaber and slashed towards Irina. Irina looked at the golden sword energy in surprise, and then released all the power of ice, forcibly freezing the golden sword energy in the air, causing it to be shattered by Irina's light shot. That's it, absolute zero. Irina's ice blue eyes were like ice, and the terrifying low temperature swept across the battlefield in the sky in an instant. Elabic felt that the speed of the alchemy array in his body was getting slower and slower, and the rate at which the golden lightsaber in his hand guided the magic power stored in his magic energy storage device was also getting lower and lower. He realized that the skin and blood on the surface of his body used for camouflage had been completely frozen, and the mechanical components in his body stopped working under the influence of ice. As a conscious data, he felt fear for the first time. You know, the strength of his body has reached the level of a Demon King. Even a full strength attack from a Demon King wizard cannot destroy it. However, this ice that seemed to freeze even time completely froze his body, just like a locomotive that was turned off at low temperature. No matter how it was ignited, it could not be started again. At the moment before the connection between Elabic's consciousness data and mechanical soldier number 1 was about to be cut off, Elabic packaged all the data analyzed by the built-in all-chemical scanner and sent it to the Magical Congress of the United States. Then, the light in Elabic's eyes dissipated, and his consciousness data was completely cut off from the connection with mechanical soldier number 1. The purple moonlight bloomed in the air, cutting off mechanical soldier number 1, which had lost the protection of the all-chemical array, in half, revealing the mechanical components frozen in the ice and the patterns of various all-chemical arrays engraved on it. I have to admit that when I saw the condition inside Elabic's body, Irina was shocked. Then, she seemed to have a guess, and her face became more and more ugly. Irina waved her hand to collect Elabic's body, and her figure slowly fell to the ground. At the moment, when Elabic was killed by Irina, the 10,000 mechanical troops on the ground seemed to have received some orders. They quickly withdrew from the range of the anti-apparition spell that Elabic had previously arranged, and then apparated and disappeared from the spot. This mechanical army retreated. Looking at the cheering auras and elite members of the DA army around her, Irina could not empathize with them. Her expression was complicated, and her mind was full of various mechanical components inside Elabic's body that she had just seen. On the other side, after dealing with the problem of the Goblin Rebellion and a plan to capture and kill all goblins in the British wizarding world, Old Barty met with Lin. Old Barty, the goblins in charge of Gringotts will completely disappear from the British wizarding world, and this wizard bank should also be taken over by wizards. Lin performed a fire apparition and brought Old Barty to the lobby of Gringotts, saying so. Looking at the empty hall with only traces of burning flames, Old Barty said, "Of course, the wizard bank should be managed by wizards, and the Ministry of Magic will naturally take back the rights that originally belonged to wizards. However, after this war, the defense of Gringotts' underground vault has completely collapsed. Before taking over Gringotts and the wizard bank, I think we must first have the power to protect these wealth." Old Barty said so. Lin nodded slightly, and he said, "I will help the Ministry of Magic to transform and take over the wizard bank, just like I helped the Ministry of Magic to transform the magic prison." Old Barty finally smiled. It must be said that Lin's magic band power is the best tool for guarding prisoners or guarding wealth. Wizards who have the special ability to cast magic can defeat fire dragons and destroy the hardest materials in the world, but the only thing they can't defeat is the magic band power that can take away the magic that gave them everything. Old Barty waved his wand, and the words Gringotts on the plaque hanging in the lobby disappeared, as if erased by an eraser. Instead, the beautiful and gorgeous words Wizard Bank appeared. From this day on, Gringotts was officially renamed Wizard Bank, and the finances of the British wizarding world will be managed by wizards themselves. Lin caught a glimpse of the words engraved on the silver door warning thieves, and he chuckled and said, "The goblins' warning has turned into the most severe retribution that has fallen on their heads. Once we replicate the alchemical technology for making gold galleons, silver sickles, and copper nuts, the connection between goblins and finance will come to an end." Chapter 765 He will be immortal and defeat death. Hogwarts Castle, the headmaster's office. Elabic's body, which was cut in half, lay quietly on the floor of the headmaster's office. After the ice that froze the robot soldier number 1 melted, various damaged mechanical components continued to emit sparks. 4 people stood around robot soldier number 1. Lin and Irina stood side by side, and Lin's eyes were more solemn than ever before. Standing opposite Lin and Irina was Dumbledore, who frowned. Although he was well versed in alchemy, he found that he could not understand the structure of these mechanical components. As for the 4th person standing in the headmaster's office, he was someone who the other 3 were very familiar with and respected, but who should not have appeared in the British wizarding world. Nicholas Flamel. Human alchemy. Nicholas Flamel looked solemnly at the mechanical soldier number 1 on the ground. He said in a deep voice, "I didn't expect that after more than 100 years, the American Magic Congress's research on human alchemy has reached this point." Lin En frowned. He seemed to have thought of something, and asked, "Master, do you mean that they have completely broken the taboo of human alchemy?" Nicholas Flamel nodded heavily. he said. It's a pity, but, yes. This is a pure alchemical creation. He does not have a wizard's soul. The so-called alchemical chip placed in his head carries nothing but a consciousness data body reproduced, based on his memory. In other words, the wizard who controls this mechanical body, the guy named Elabic, is probably already dead at the moment he uploaded his consciousness data, and even his soul has dissipated in the world. This body created by alchemy can no longer be called a human. Nicholas Flamel said. Dumbledore looked at Nico and asked softly, Nico, according to what you said, this guy's not a wizard, but a thorough war machine. So, can I understand that the American Magic Congress has mastered the means to create a war machine equivalent to a demon level wizard? Nico Flamel said, they can create a demon level wizard, so they can naturally create a second demon level wizard, but obviously, they can't mass produce demon level wizards, otherwise, they would have occupied the entire wizarding world long ago. Even so, after hearing the answer given by Nico Flamel, Lin and Irina's faces were still very ugly. This is not difficult to understand. If you are a wizard in the British wizarding world, then you will only feel scared when you hear that Voldemort has made a comeback, but you will not feel desperate. However, if someone tells you that this Voldemort is not the original Voldemort, but a more powerful existence, a war machine created and deployed in the British wizarding world, then, will you feel terrified or desperate? Exclamation mark. After all, even a demon level wizard, even a dark lord who can destroy a country, can be artificially created, so how can you resist such an enemy? Exclamation mark. Lin En said softly, human alchemy is by no means a one-time thing, and the United States Magic Congress has created a demon level war machine, which is by no means completed overnight. Nicholas Flamel nodded, and he said in a deep voice, you are right, Lin En, this war machine gives me a very familiar feeling. 200 years ago, I exiled an alchemist who broke the taboo and tried human alchemy from the French magic world. 100 years ago, I discovered that there were human alchemy experiments in the American magic world, and the experimental ideas and experimental methods of that human alchemy were very similar to those of the guy I exiled from the French magic world 200 years ago. Now, the result of human alchemy in front of you, a demon level war machine. Its experimental ideas and experimental methods of human alchemy are also very similar to that guy. I have reason to suspect that that guy passed on his attainments in human alchemy to the United States Magic Congress. Or, that guy has been lingering on through the years through human alchemy until today. I regret that I chose to exile him instead of killing him. Nicholas Flamel said. Nicholas Flamel was already more than 400 years old 200 years ago, and at that time Nicholas Flamel had long lost the desire to compete with the world for power and interests. He just wanted to live in seclusion in the mountains with his wife. However, the French magic world was in a frenzy of human alchemy, and even the Alchemy Association of the French magic world could not suppress it. This forced Nicholas Flamel to take action himself at the repeated requests of the Alchemy Association of the French magic world. The mastermind behind the human alchemy did not seem to hide his thoughts at all. Nicholas Flamel only took 2 days to catch this guy. However, this guy did not realize that he was arrested. Instead, he enthusiastically told Nico that he deliberately wanted to take this opportunity to meet Nico, and he even made a request to Nico. He wanted to borrow Nico's Philosopher's Stone. He told Nico that he had mastered the secret of human alchemy, and his body would be immortal. However, his soul would continue to weaken and wear out as time went by. One day, when his soul could no longer carry the memory of those long years, he would gradually lose his memory and mind like most elderly people with Alzheimer's disease. Even if his body was immortal, he would become a walking corpse. As long as he could get the Philosopher's Stone and refine the elixir that could keep his soul young forever, he would be able to achieve immortality and defeat death with both his soul and body immortal. However, this absurd idea seemed like a fantasy to Nico. He broke the taboo of human alchemy. As a sinner of alchemy, what right did he have to make demands on himself? Exclamation mark. Nico did not agree to this guy's request. He lived in seclusion in the mountains. His character had been smoothed over the years. He did not choose to kill this guy who dared to break the taboo of alchemy, but chose to exile him from the French magic world, exiling him from the place where alchemy was prosperous. Nico looked at the three people in front of him, and he said softly, "Since this is a problem I left behind 200 years ago, I will naturally take the corresponding responsibility. I will go to the American magic world to look for corresponding clues." Lin En nodded vigorously and said, "Then I'll leave it to you, Master." Dumbledore's blue eyes stared at Nico. He didn't say anything, but just greeted this old friend with his eyes. Chapter 766. Time flies, and the partners are promoted to the Demon King level one after another. After preparing Lin En and others for the possibility of war breaking out again at any time, Nicholas Flamel left the British magic world to find clues to the human alchemy laboratory in his own way. The Goblin Rebellion was suppressed, the American Magic Congress withdrew its troops, and the British magic world seemed to have returned to its original peace. Everything was so stable and prosperous. Through Arnold's alchemical creations, Lin En reproduced the alchemical technology of replacing magic with the power of stars to make it the energy source of the alchemical array, which made the alchemical weapons created by Lin En no longer restricted by the forbidden magic power. Old Barty officially announced in a public speech that Gringotts in the British magic world was renamed the Wizard Bank, and the Ministry of Magic will also set up another department to manage matters related to the Wizard Bank. It can be said that the Wizard Bank will become an institution under the jurisdiction of the Ministry of Magic, just like the Magic Prison. Just when some wizards were worried about whether the rebuilt Wizard Bank could protect the people's property, Lin En personally came to the rebuilt Wizard Bank. All element related to goblins were erased, and decorations very similar to the Ministry of Magic Hall appeared in the lobby of the Wizard Bank. Just like in the Magic Prison, Lin covered the entire Wizard Bank with a space blockade array and installed a magic barrier that can achieve full coverage in every corner of the Wizard Bank and its underground vault. This prevented all wizards or other magical creatures who entered the Wizard Bank from using magic power, let alone the unrealistic behavior of releasing magic to carry out robbery. In order to prevent the guards of Gringotts from stealing, Lin did not issue these guards with identity tokens that could be immune to the restrictions of the magic barrier within the Wizard Bank and the underground vault. Lin created a batch of alchemical firearms that had a certain lethality, but were not fatal, and issued them to the guards of the Wizard Bank. These alchemical firearms use the alchemical technology that Lin obtained from Arnold. The alchemical arrays inside these alchemical firearms use the power of the stars as their energy source, which allowed them to be used within the range of the magic barrier. Not only that, Lin En also built an alchemical creation that can automatically absorb the power of the stars to charge the alchemical guns of the guards of the Wizard Bank. Lin En was not worried about whether these guards holding alchemical guns would steal from the guards. Regardless of the fact that their alchemical guns did not have lethal capabilities, the defensive alchemical array and monitoring alchemical array in the underground vault alone were enough to prevent them from leaving the Wizard Bank. Under Lin En's careful arrangement, even the Demon King level wizards could not easily escape from the Wizard Bank, let alone obtain wealth that did not belong to them. It can be said that the Wizard Bank is not only a heavily defended bank, but also when the Wizard War comes and the magic disaster comes, the underground vault of the Wizard Bank will become a perfect refuge and a perfect magic barrier. After the Wizard Bank and the Magic Prison were officially put into operation, the British magic world seemed to be back on track. The Wizard Bank has become a safer place in the world than Hogwarts, and the Magic Prison has become a more terrifying existence than Azkaban Prison. Even the concept of forbidden objects proposed by the Ministry of Magic has gradually been accepted by people, and every receiver who has received a forbidden object has become an object of admiration by people in the British magic world. In people's eyes, receivers are almost always a symbol of powerful strength, just like the Demon King level wizards, who make people feel inexplicably awed at the first sound of their name. By the way, the power of the demon refined by Lin and the ice crystal spear in Irina's hand have also appeared on the list of forbidden objects newly listed by the Ministry of Magic, and Lin and Irina have naturally become receivers of forbidden objects. There are 3 Demon King level wizards in the British magic world. Lin received the power of the demon, Irina received the ice crystal spear, and Dumbledore received the Elder Wand. The 3 Demon King level wizards in the British magic world are all receivers. Perhaps this preconceived view is the real reason why people think that receivers are mysterious and powerful beings. Time flies. Harry, Ron, Hermione, Neville and others graduated from Hogwarts School of Witchcraft and Wizardry. Neville chose to stay in Hogwarts Castle as an apprentice professor, while Harry and others chose to join the Ministry of Magic. While Harry and others became official soldiers of the DA Army, they also benefited from the legal provisions of the Ministry of Magic that in non-wartime, wizards of the Magic Army can serve in other positions in the Ministry of Magic and Hogwarts School of Witchcraft and Wizardry, and they had other positions in the Ministry of Magic. Harry chose to join the Auror office and became a glorious Auror. Ron followed in his father's footsteps and joined the Department of the Prohibition of the Abuse of Muggle Objects, but he had a lot of crooked ideas. With the convenience of work, he understood and exploited loopholes to transform a lot of Muggle technology. Hermione volunteered to be the secretary of Voldemort and learned about the job responsibilities of the Minister of Magic. After Harry's class, elite members of the DA Army such as Ginny Weasley and Luna Lovegood also graduated from Hogwarts School of Witchcraft and Wizardry. Ginny fell in love with Harry, which made her join the Auror office without hesitation and fight side by side with Harry. Luna, on the other hand, did not choose other positions in the Ministry of Magic when she became a formal soldier of the DA Army. Instead, she returned home to help her father run the Quibbler after the DA Army training, which was the illusion test sponsored by Lin. Later, Astoria also graduated from Hogwarts School of Witchcraft and Wizardry. In the summer after graduation, after 2 months of deep practice, she was promoted to the level of Demon King Wizard with the ancient magic of Blood Curse and Blood Curse. By the way, a year before Astoria was promoted to the level of Demon King Wizard, Irving also successfully superimposed a powerful Thunder Force. The Thunder Force he mastered changed qualitatively, which allowed him to be promoted to the level of Demon King Wizard with the ancient magic of Thunder Magic. In Diagon Alley, the Weasley arm shop run by Fred and George became more and more prosperous. Their orders were sold all over the magic world. Except for the American magic world whose orders were rejected by Fred and George, the magic world of almost every country had a large number of alchemical firearms produced by Weasley Arms Shop on the market. Of course, in addition to making money, Fred and George did not forget to improve their own strength. Half a year after Astoria was promoted to the Demon King level wizard, with the golden light unfolding over Diagon Alley, a Demon King level alchemy array slowly operated under the Weasley Arms Shop. Fred and George were promoted to the Demon King level wizard. However, it was not Fred who was promoted to the Demon King level wizard, nor was it George who was promoted to the Demon King level wizard, but Fred and George who were promoted to the Demon King level wizard. Speaking of either Fred or George alone, they do not have the combat power of the Demon King level wizard, but when they have a common mind and fight together, they can release infinite magic power and refine the Demon King level alchemy array. Fred and George cannot leave each other. They are an inseparable magic and alchemy community, and the Demon King level wizards they have promoted to are also the same Demon King level wizard. Chapter 767. The precarious magical world in the international law of secrecy that is no longer confidential. Soon, it was the 3rd year since the end of the Goblin Rebellion and the withdrawal of the American Magical Congress. With the arrival of July, Hogwarts School of Witchcraft and Wizardry also ushered in the summer vacation of the year. More than 50 young wizards in the DA Army Reserve became official soldiers of the British wizarding world, and more young wizards returned home happily. On this day, that should have been full of laughter and joy, the Auror office was filled with a tense atmosphere, and every Auror's nerves were also tense. Director. The Aurors are seriously understaffed and urgently need reinforcement. A new Auror who had joined the Auror office for less than a year hurriedly walked into the Auror office and said to Scrimgeour, "In the past 3 years, the Auror office has been expanded many times, and a large number of members of the DA Army regular army also served as Aurors, which increased the number of Aurors in the Auror office to more than 2,000. But even so, the continuous events in the past 1 or 2 years have still put a lot of pressure on the Auror office. They are understaffed, far from enough." Scrimgeour stood up and looked at the new Auror with a frown. "What's the situation?" The new Auror said anxiously, "It's very urgent. In just 3 days, there have been 2 leaks near London. 3 muggles witnessed the process of wizards casting spells. This is not the most important thing. The most important thing is that the 3 muggles reported everything they saw to the London Police Department, and those bastard muggle police retrieved the surveillance footage of the witnessing scene and uploaded the process of wizards casting spells in the surveillance to the so-called Internet of Muggles. According to intelligence provided by colleagues from the Department of Magical Accidents and Catastrophes, the Reversal of Accidental Magical Events Team, and the Memory Cancellation Command, the number of muggles who have watched the relevant surveillance videos on the internet has exceeded 3,000. This number is still increasing rapidly, and this is just the leaks that have occurred in the past 3 days. We have to contact the Muggle Prime Minister, hoping that they will set up a department to supervise the network and facilitate the cancellation of our memories. But even so, our manpower is still far from enough. The frequency of leaks and the difficulty of covering up are rising sharply. The new aura said so. According to the original historical trajectory, the British Muggle world should have established a civil police force in 2001, but due to the frequent leaks in the magic world, the Ministry of Magic and the British Muggle Prime Minister negotiated, and the process was advanced by 2 years. Scrimgeour frowned even deeper. As early as more than 20 years ago, the Muggles invented surveillance, but the Ministry of Magic at that time did not care about it. In their opinion, they only needed to delete the surveillance and cancel the memory of the people who had watched the surveillance one by one. But now, with the popularization of the internet in the UK, everyone can upload their videos to the internet for more people to watch. When seeing something magical and incredible like magic, the first reaction of most British people is to film it and post it on the internet. This is a good thing in the Muggle world, but for the Ministry of Magic of various countries, it makes them feel miserable. The existence of the internet has made it more difficult for wizards to maintain international confidentiality laws. It is not just the British wizarding world that suffers from the internet, but the wizarding world of all developed countries and countries with high technological levels around the world. The wizards took great pains to delete the memories of muggles, but their actions were like adding fuel to the fire. Not only could they not completely solve the problem of the International Statute of Secrecy, but they would suffer even greater backlash the day when the magic world was completely exposed. Under this situation, wizards in the magic world of various countries have proposed the idea of abolishing the International Statute of Secrecy. Today's International Statute of Secrecy has made it impossible for wizards to survive in Muggle society, and under surveillance and the internet, the magic world will have nowhere to hide. Wizards can no longer hide themselves, let alone keep secrets. The call for abolishing the International Statute of Secrecy is getting louder and louder. The magic ministries of various countries are secretly discussing the relevant issue, that is, whether the International Statute of Secrecy should be abolished or retained, except for one magic world. That is the American magic world. Unlike the magic ministries of other countries that have connections with Muggle leaders of various countries, the Magical Congress of the United States of America and Muggles, or according to American wizards, they have no connection with the No-Maj government. Due to the historical legacy of the establishment of the Magical Congress of the United States of America, the Magical Congress of the United States of America and the No-Maj government have always been a hostile relationship, which makes it impossible for the two to establish any cooperation. The MACUSA, which cannot cooperate with the local No-Maj government, will naturally not agree to the draft of abolishing the International Statute of Secrecy, because that will mean that the American magic world will become the target of public criticism. They cannot cooperate with Muggles, which makes them lack a great advantage compared to the magic world of other countries, which is something that the MACUSA, which thinks highly of itself, cannot tolerate. In the face of the voices of the magic world in its own country, the MACUSA adopted the method of suppression, that is, arresting all wizards who called for abolishing the International Statute of Secrecy and punishing them. The overbearing behavior of the MACUSA caused dissatisfaction among local wizards in the surrounding magic world, but due to the fact that the MACUSA has a full 10,000 mechanical army, no one dared to openly oppose the policy of the MACUSA. After all, for now, the method adopted by the MACUSA is only used for local wizards, and it is not like the No-Maj government, which governs the affairs of other countries with its own laws. Since the MACUSA has not affected its own magic world, the surrounding magic ministries naturally chose to stand by and watch. The only ones who resisted strongly may be some local wizard groups in the American magic world. However, this is limited to the attitude of the United States Magical Congress towards the people who made the call. At the meeting of the International Confederation of Wizards, the attitude of the representatives of the United States Magical Congress was as tough as ever. They firmly opposed the proposal to abolish international law. To this end, they did not hesitate to threaten the magic ministries of those small countries with interests or even force, asking them to oppose the proposal to abolish the international secrecy law with them. These are all later stories. Scrimgeour looked at the new aura in front of him, and he said in a deep voice, "Report this matter to Minister Crouch. We need the assistance of the Muggle Prime Minister, and Minister Crouch is the only one who can meet with the Muggle Prime Minister directly. If you want to erase the memories of all Muggles who have seen this surveillance video, you must find their addresses along the internet, and only the newly established Internet Police Department of the Muggle government can do that." Scrimgeour said so. Chapter 768. Those who were once protected should also shoulder the responsibility of protecting the magical world. Watching the new aura leave, a trace of fatigue appeared in Scrimgeour's eyes. He came back to his senses, looked at another boy in the aura's office, and called out his name, Harry. Hearing Scrimgeour's call, Harry was refreshed. He stood up and asked, "Director Scrimgeour, what's the next mission?" With the increase in the frequency of leaks, most auras were assigned the task of erasing memories, while the task of arresting dark wizards and fighting criminals with wits and courage was handed over to elite auras such as Harry. Harry's magic level was much stronger than Scrimgeour's, and it was a bit of a waste to let Harry be responsible for the task of erasing memories. Therefore, Scrimgeour never assigned the task of erasing memories to Harry, which made Harry seem much more relaxed than other auras. After all, as early as 3 years ago, a large number of dark wizards in the British magic world were incorporated into the Death Eaters by Voldemort, and were completely annihilated in the defense of the Ministry of Magic and the defense of Hogwarts. The dark wizards in Diagon Alley were slaughtered by the goblins during the Goblin Rebellion. The death of so many dark wizards has reduced the crime rate in the British wizarding world. Many people who were forced to become dark wizards due to the terror of the magic prison have chosen to turn over a new leaf. This has left only a few extremely vicious dark wizards in the British wizarding world, still causing chaos in the British wizarding world. However, no matter how difficult these extremely vicious dark wizards are, how can they be a match for Harry, who has reached the level of a quasi-demon king wizard? Exclamation mark. After several operations to eliminate dark wizards, Harry became famous in the Aura office, and was the only candidate for the future director of the Aura office in people's minds. Scrimgeour shook his head and asked, "Harry, you should be promoted to the level of Demon Lord soon, right?" The promotion of Irving, Astoria and the Weir Light Winds to the level of Demon Lord caused a stir in the British wizarding world, and many people in the British wizarding world were speculating who would be the next to be promoted to the level of Demon Lord. Harry, who was once called the Savior, and played a lot of roles in the Battle of Hogwarts, was the candidate in many people's minds. Hearing Scrimgeour's words, Harry just smiled, and did not refute. He only heard him say, "Maybe, soon, when I develop an advanced spell for the disarmament spell, maybe I can rely on my attainments in the disarmament spell to be promoted to the level of Demon Lord." Scrimgeour nodded slightly. Scrimgeour had also heard of the advanced spell for the disarmament spell mentioned by Harry. Harry's goal was to develop a disarming magic based on the disarmament spell with a more idealistic judgment method. The disarming spell today can only disarm the opponent's weapons, such as wands, silver swords, and guns, which are defined as weapons in people's eyes. The best that the disarming spell master can do is to identify shields and other protective gear as weapons and disarm them. As for Harry's ideal advanced spell of the disarming spell, it can treat everything that the caster identifies as a weapon and disarm it. To give a simple example, I think your heart is beating and poses a threat to me. Your heart is the weapon you are going to use, so I will use the advanced disarming spell to disarm your heart and take your heart out of your chest. Giving the disarming spell a higher and more deadly lethality is only one feature of the advanced spell of the disarming spell, not all of it. In Harry's opinion, the greatest use of this advanced spell of the disarming spell is to decipher. Yes, decipher. I think your puzzle poses a threat to me, and your puzzle is the weapon you use, so I want to dispel your puzzle and completely crack the mechanical mechanism, protective magic, alchemy array and other puzzles you have arranged. It can be used in combat and to crack various defense systems. The strength of this magic is comparable to some basic ancient magic. No wonder Harry has not yet been promoted to the level of a Demon King wizard. Perhaps the threshold he chose for himself is too high. 1 year. Scrimgeour looked at Harry and said softly. Hearing Scrimgeour's words, Harry looked at him puzzled. Scrimgeour said softly, in the last operation to eliminate dark wizards, your leadership and command ability impress me, and your magical attainments far exceed mine. Harry, I want to step down from the position of director of the Auror office in a year, and you will be the successor to this position. Harry, you will be the director of the Auror office. Scrimgeour said so. Harry stared at Scrimgeour in front of him. Under the wear and tear of these 3 years, Scrimgeour has aged a lot. His temples have become much grayer, and wrinkles have appeared on his face. At this moment, Harry could clearly realize that those who once protected the wizarding world were already old, and those who were once protected should also take on the responsibility of protecting the wizarding world. Harry nodded gently, his voice barely perceptible. Okay. At the same time, in the British Prime Minister's office, looking at the 3 figures walking out of the fireplace, the Prime Minister was startled at first, and after recognizing the owner of the figure in the middle, he smiled. Nice to see you again, Mr. Crouch. Old Barty smiled and nodded at the Prime Minister. He said, the cooperation in the past few years has been very pleasant, but the frequent occurrence of leaks of the International Secrecy Act has made the Ministry of Magic a mess today. Today, I have come to discuss this matter with the Prime Minister. The Prime Minister nodded thoughtfully. He looked at the other 2 figures behind old Barty who looked much younger, and asked, Mr. Crouch, won't you introduce me to the gentleman and the lady behind you? Of course. Old Barty took off his hat and saluted. Mr. Prime Minister, please allow me to introduce to you the 2 guardians of our British wizarding world, Mr. Lin Rao and Ms. Irina Lovell. Standing behind old Batty were Lin En and Irina. They knew very well that the international confidentiality law leaks that had occurred in the past 2 years were not accidental, and with the development of technology, the magic world in the future would certainly be exposed. Reality is not a joke, nor is it a storybook written by someone. Reality will not be so ideal to follow everyone's will, nor will it be like a storybook, where you can open and close your mouth and 19 years will pass, so safe and sound without any accidents. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 769. There are always people performing magic in front of muggles in the name of magic. After hearing old Barty's introduction to Lin and Irina, the Prime Minister's vigilance was lowered a little. Since they are the guardians of the British magic world, these 2 young people who look mysterious are probably not enemies. Thinking of this, the Prime Minister smiled and nodded to the 2 of them. Hello, Mr. Rawl, Ms. Lovell. Lin walked up and shook hands with the Prime Minister. He said straight to the point, Mr. Prime Minister, we are here to solve the problems that have troubled our magic world and also affected the world of ordinary people to a certain extent. Therefore, I sincerely hope that we can reach a consensus on our opinions, cooperate sincerely, and make our country more prosperous, whether it is a world of ordinary people or the magic world. Lin said in a resounding voice. The Prime Minister asked, then, in the face of the frequent occurrence of signs of magic in our country, our people have witnessed signs of magic, which is what you call leaks. What are your thoughts? Thoughts? Lin said with a chuckle. Then we have to start with the division of so-called wizards and ordinary people in the magic world. The Prime Minister looked over with interest. He was very curious about what Lin was going to say. Lin En just said, in my opinion, wizards are born from ordinary people. Wizards do not have one more arm or one more leg than ordinary people. They just have a special talent, which is the means of controlling magic. However, wizards in the past simply and narrowly separated wizards from ordinary people, and no longer identified themselves with ordinary people as the same race. This is certainly a historical legacy of the witch hunting movement in the Middle Ages, but the arrogance of wizards who master magic has made this prejudice even more serious. But no matter how wizards deny it, the fact is that wizards come from ordinary people. Every year, new wizards are born in ordinary families, which proves this point. Wizards should not be a race outside of ordinary people, but should be a member of ordinary people, or a profession divided by ordinary people. Lin En said so. Lin En's words, that wizards are one of ordinary people, made the Prime Minister feel a little cordial. Even though old Barty was also very friendly to the Prime Minister, in the eyes of the Prime Minister, old Barty's friendliness was more like mutual cooperation and respect between two different civilizations, rather than a concerted effort within a common society to create a better future. In addition, the Prime Minister was also very interested in Lin En's statement that wizards come from ordinary people. You know, every year, little wizards born in muggle families will be taken to Hogwarts Castle for education at the age of 11. That is, the year they learn that they are little wizards, and only their families know their identities. This made the Prime Minister unaware that there are so many wizards in the magic world, actually from ordinary people's families. By the way, the Prime Minister asked curiously, you just said that new wizards are born in ordinary people's families every year? Could it be that magic is a special talent, and each of us has the opportunity to awaken this talent? Hearing the Prime Minister's words, Irina smiled and said, Mr. Prime Minister, you are right. If you are willing to spend the energy to check my background, you can find that my parents are ordinary middle-class families in the UK, and I only learned that I was a wizard when I was 11 years old. The Prime Minister looked at Irina in surprise. He never thought that one of the guardians of the British magic world actually came from an ordinary family. This made the originally mysterious image of the magic world clearer in his mind. The mysterious veil seemed to be peeled off layer by layer as the two people in front of him slowly spoke. After learning that Irina and her family were originally ordinary people like himself, the Prime Minister's eyes became more friendly. The Prime Minister said softly, according to what you said, we and wizards are originally one family, and there should be no barriers between the two. Why do wizards use the law of confidentiality to hide themselves? Irina said, this is exactly our problem. The witch hunting movement in the Middle Ages has long passed, and the arrogance of wizards has gradually lost its corresponding capital with the development of ordinary people's technology. The popularity of surveillance and the internet means that it is difficult for wizards to hide themselves as before, and the international law of confidentiality cannot be maintained for a long time. The international law of confidentiality will eventually be lifted one day. Irina said so. Hearing Irina's words, the Prime Minister frowned slightly, and he said, so, are you going to abolish the statute of secrecy? However, if wizards suddenly appear in the public eye, regardless of whether people can accept the existence of supernatural beings such as magic and wizards in this world in a short period of time, just talking about human nature, there will always be people who choose to take risks in order to obtain this extraordinary power. Of course, this is also what we are concerned about, Lin said lightly. So, we came up with a new plan, the integration plan. The Prime Minister looked at Lin in confusion. Integration plan? Lin nodded affirmatively and said, yes, wizards and ordinary people are destined to get along in a society, and this process must be gradual. Wizards cannot enter the public eye all at once, so we need a slow integration process. In the early stages of this process, the British Ministry of Magic will reduce memory cancellation and other actions to maintain the statute of secrecy, and we need the cooperation of the British Internet Police Department, that is to label all signs of magic that appear on the internet as magic. Lin looked into the Prime Minister's eyes and said so. The Prime Minister's expression was even more surprised. Magic? Lin smiled and said, yes, it is magic. Most of the wizards in the British magic world only master some daily magic, not lethal magic. And most of the daily magic can be done by many magicians in the society of ordinary people with special magical means. In other words, we need to make people accustomed to the existence of magic and mistake it for magic. In this way, people will preconceivably regard these wizards who perform magic in front of them in the name of magic as ordinary people like themselves, rather than special people. When people get used to magic, or the existence of what they think is magic, then when we reveal the existence of the magical world, they will suddenly realize that wizards are right beside them and live with them day and night. Lin said softly. Chapter 770 Why should we be accepted and recognized by no mage? Exclamation mark. Lin En's idea was very novel to the Prime Minister, and he subconsciously thought that this idea was feasible. The Prime Minister's eyes seemed to be shining, and he continued with Lin En's words. By then, wizards in the eyes of the public will be regarded as gifted people, just like mathematical geniuses, physical geniuses, and invention geniuses, rather than beings other than humans. The public will only envy their talents, and will not take extreme measures to harm them just to get their talents. Just like people will not dig out the brains of those mathematical geniuses and put them into their own heads to get their mathematical talents. The Prime Minister said excitedly. Lin En smiled and affirmed, and he whispered, "Yes, Mr. Prime Minister, this is the integration plan. Let wizards subtly integrate into the society of ordinary people and eventually become part of the society of ordinary people. This is the main content of the integration plan." The Prime Minister nodded vigorously, and he said seriously, "I understand, Mr. Owl, Ms. Lovell, Mr. Crouch, I agree with the integration plan. In addition, I will fully cooperate with the implementation of the integration plan. Wizards and ordinary people should not be separated." Lin smiled and looked at Old Barty. Old Barty, as the Minister of Magic, extended his hand to the Prime Minister and said softly, "Then, happy cooperation." The Prime Minister shook Old Barty's hand, and his face was full of smiles. Happy cooperation. A week later, the International Confederation of Wizards was held in the suburbs of London. As the organizer of this International Confederation of Wizards, the British Ministry of Magic built a spectacular conference building in the suburbs of London overnight. One by one, wizard representatives from various countries wearing wizard robes walked into the conference building in an orderly manner. Their strange attire did not attract the attention of others, or in other words, there were no muggles in this area at all. After learning that the International Confederation of Wizards would be held in the UK and the main content of the meeting was about whether to abolish the International Statute of Secrecy, the Prime Minister provided a piece of suburban land to Old Barty and asked the London police to guard the periphery to prevent the public from mistakenly entering. The cooperation between wizards and muggles allowed the meeting to be held as scheduled. When the International Confederation of Wizards began, all the wizard representatives from the Ministry of Magic had already sat in their seats. Lin and Irina came to the conference hall as the wizard representative of the British Ministry of Magic and his assistant respectively. They looked at Dumbledore, who was sitting in the first seat as the president of the International Confederation of Wizards. Noticing the gazes of Lin and Irina, Dumbledore nodded without leaving a trace, then looked at everyone, and announced the start of the meeting. Lin En stood up, his eyes swept across the faces of each representative, and he said loudly, in response to the frequent leaks of the International Statute of Secrecy in recent years, we put forward the following view: the existence of Muggle technology will break the cover of magic such as Muggle expulsion spells, and will expose the magic world to Muggle society. The International Statute of Secrecy is unsustainable, but it is not advisable to abolish it directly. We wizards and muggles do not understand each other, and it is difficult for us to live together in a society. This requires a gradual process, a process that is enough to enhance the mutual recognition of wizards and muggles. In this regard, we are willing to provide a plan, called the Fusion Plan. Please circulate it to all representatives. Lin En said straight to the point. He took out a piece of parchment written in various countries' fonts, and handed it to the wizard representatives beside him. Soon, the parchment recording the origin, purpose, and implementation plan of the Fusion Plan was passed to each wizard representative, and they all looked at the parchment in their hands carefully. Not long after, many wizard representatives' eyes lit up, and some couldn't help but praise loudly. Cooperating with the Muggle government, displaying magic in the name of magic, letting Muggles gradually adapt to the existence of magic, and finally revealing the existence of the magic world. What a clever plan. Among the magic departments, represented by each wizard representative present, only the Magical Congress of the United States of America has not contacted the local government of ordinary people, which also makes the wizard representative of the Magical Congress of the United States of America the only one with an ugly face among all the people present. No. We firmly oppose this plan. This so-called fusion plan must not be implemented. This is a provocation to the International Statute of Secrecy. This is a provocation to the International Confederation of Wizards. The American wizard representative said loudly. Hearing the words of the American wizard representative, the wizard representatives around him all frowned and looked at him. The French wizard representative sneered and said, "Are you still going to stick to the blood feud with your so-called no-mage? Could it be that you can't get in touch with the muggle government, and you can't eat grapes, and say that the grapes are sour?" Hearing this, the American wizard representative's face suddenly turned pale. Lin said calmly, "In the face of muggle surveillance and the internet, no matter how hard we try, there is always a loophole. That negligence is likely to be viewed by more than 10,000 or even 1 million people. Can your auras handle it? Whether wizards or muggles, they are basically human beings, and wizards are just humans who master magic. We hide ourselves and isolate ourselves from muggle society in order to protect ourselves, but now, the international statute of secrecy we uphold is persecuting ourselves invisibly. Do you remember the history of the promulgation of the international statute of secrecy? In the witch hunts in the Middle Ages, the persecution of wizards by muggles forced wizards to go underground. The original British Ministry of Magic sent a special delegation to contact the Muggle monarchs William III and Mary II, hoping that Muggle law would recognize and protect wizards. But they failed. Muggles are unwilling to acknowledge wizards and persecute them forcefully. This is the reason and purpose of the International Statute of Secrecy, to protect wizards themselves. But now, when we establish contact with the Muggle government, their attitude is friendly. They are willing to accept and acknowledge us. We shouldn't hide. We are all human beings. We should live under the sun, right? American wizard representatives, I know your concerns. If you are worried that you can't establish cooperation with the Muggle government, we will provide corresponding political assistance, Lin En said, and finally looked at the wizard representatives of the Magical Congress of the United States. Listening to Lin En's words, the face of the American wizard representative turned pale and blue. He said angrily, "What does this have to do with the no-mage government? We are wizards, special beings who hold the power of magic. Why should we be accepted and acknowledged by no-mage?" Chapter 771. The Magical Congress of the United States of America officially withdraws from the International Confederation of Wizards. The International Statute of Secrecy must not be abolished. If the magic world cannot hide from the no-mages, then we will defeat the no-mages and rule them. We are noble wizards. Why should we bow down to those no-mages? The American wizard representative roared angrily. Lin chuckled. He did not seem to be angry at the words of the American wizard representative. He just said faintly, "American wizard representative, your speech now is very similar to your enemy decades ago, the first generation Dark Lord Gellert Grindelwald." Hearing Lin's words, the American wizard representative was frightened and sweated. Wizards who have experienced that war know how terrible the first generation Dark Lord Gellert Grindelwald was, and how miserable the fate of those who were marked by the remnant of Grindelwald's thoughts was. The American wizard representative glared at Lin En, and he growled, "What about you? British wizard representative, you advocate the abolition of the International Statute of Secrecy. Isn't that the same as Grindelwald's idea?" Listening to the quarrel between Lin En and the American wizard representative, Dumbledore, who was sitting in the first seat, kept twitching. He knocked on the table gently and said, "Silence." Lin En and the American wizard representative both stopped arguing and turned their eyes to Dumbledore. The fierce debate with the American wizard representative intensified, and Dumbledore, the president of the International Confederation of Wizards, forcibly interrupted him. This was exactly what Lin En wanted to see. Judging from the performance of the wizard representatives of the various magic ministries present, after seeing the content of the fusion plan, the reactions they showed were satisfactory to Lin En. Therefore, he did not want to see the American wizard representative transmit his views to the wizard representatives of other magic ministries, and he did not want the American wizard representative's theory of wizard nobility to affect or change the ideas of other wizard representatives. At this time, it was the most appropriate way to let Dumbledore interrupt their quarrel, because that would mean the beginning of the vote. Please all representatives of the International Confederation of Wizards vote on the draft of the fusion plan. Dumbledore saw what Lin En was thinking, and he said lightly, tapping his wand on the table in front of him. The next moment, 3 alchemical buttons appeared in front of each wizard representative. Among these 3 alchemical buttons, 2 buttons represented approval and opposition to the fusion plan proposed by Lin En, and the remaining button represented abstention. Lin En pressed the button representing agreement without hesitation, and then observed the wizard representatives around him. Among these wizard representatives, many wizard representatives' Ministry of Magic had already discussed the result, that is, the abolition of the International Statute of Secrecy, which had a great appeal in their magic world. The fusion plan undoubtedly supported the abolition of the International Statute of Secrecy, and it was an extremely stable and step-by-step plan, which made them immediately choose to press the alchemical button representing agreement. Of course, there are also many small countries' magic ministries that have been instructed by the American Magic Congress. They were either bought by money or coerced by force and chose to press the alchemical button representing opposition. Only a few wizard representatives from the Ministry of Magic were undecided and chose to abstain. More wizard representatives from the Ministry of Magic were caught in a dilemma. They used the alchemical communication tools in their hands to contact their own Ministry of Magic, hoping to get instructions from the Ministry of Magic. In order to give these wizard representatives enough time to make a choice and let them make a choice that can better represent the Ministry of Magic in their country, this voting session lasted for half a day. During this period, wizard representatives from various countries had a meal in the conference building and took this time to contact their own Ministry of Magic and get the final answer. As time went by, the voting session ended. The alchemical instrument completed the counting of the votes and presented them to Dumbledore. After seeing the result of the vote, Dumbledore had an imperceptible smile on his face, and he announced loudly, "I, Albus Dumbledore, as the president of the International Confederation of Wizards, announce the voting results of the draft of the integration plan as follows. 132 votes in favor, 54 votes against, and 7 abstentions. I, Albus Dumbledore, as the president of the International Confederation of Wizards, announce that the draft of the integration plan has been passed with more than 2/3 of the votes. The International Confederation of Wizards will provide guidance to the magic residences of various countries based on the integration plan and supervise the implementation of the integration plan. Together, we will create a better tomorrow for the magic world," Dumbledore said. After learning the final result of the vote, Lin and Irina both breathed a sigh of relief. You know, in the past 2 years when the International Statute of Secrecy has been leaked frequently, they have been committed to promoting the abolition of the International Statute of Secrecy. But unfortunately, the International Statute of Secrecy is so deeply rooted in the eyes of most wizards that it is difficult to remove, and the power of the American Magic Congress has made the number of votes against it prevail, preventing the implementation of their ideas. Thanks to the fusion plan proposed by Lin and Irina, wizards have the opportunity to abolish the International Statute of Secrecy. This step-by-step process is accepted by many magic ministries that originally opposed it, which is why the draft was passed this time. Of course, the passage of the fusion plan also has some luck. The 132 yes votes were passed on the edge of 2/3 of the votes. If there is one less wizard representative who votes yes, the draft of the fusion plan will be rejected. The Magical Congress of the United States firmly disagrees. After learning the voting results, the American wizard representative stood up angrily, disregarding the order of the meeting, and openly opposed. The Magical Congress of the United States firmly opposes the fusion plan, and will never implement the fusion plan in the American wizard world. Seeing that the American wizard representative violated the meeting order of the International Confederation of Wizards, Dumbledore frowned and said, "American wizard representative, this is a joint decision of the International Confederation of Wizards. According to the principle of minority obeying the majority and the Treaty of the International Confederation of Wizards, the Magical Congress of the United States should follow the arrangement of the voting results of the International Confederation of Wizards and implement the specific implementation plan of the fusion plan within its own territory after the International Confederation of Wizards determines it," Dumbledore said lightly. Hearing Dumbledore's words, the American wizard representative sneered. Without anyone noticing, a series of data streams flashed in his eyes that seemed to have no flaws. Then, as if he had received some information, he looked at Dumbledore coldly. He slowly took off the badge of the International Confederation of Wizards on his chest, discarded it like a piece of trash, and threw it casually on the table. Then, He took off his tie and placed it steadily on the table. In this case, from today on, the Magical Congress of the United States of America will officially withdraw from the International Confederation of Wizards. The Magical Congress of the United States of America will no longer hold any position in the International Confederation of Wizards, nor will it enjoy any rights and obligations of the International Confederation of Wizards. The wizard representative of the Magical Congress of the United States of America said coldly. Chapter 772 How to Revive a Heart Buried in Midsummer? Hearing the words of the wizard representative of the United States Magic Congress, everyone looked at him with incredible eyes. You know, after the news that the United States Magic Congress has a wizard army with more than 10,000 wizards spread, in the eyes of everyone, the strength of the American magic world is the first echelon in the world. Only the British magic world, which has many Magic King level wizards, has the capital to compete with the American magic world. However, the United States Magic Congress, which holds perhaps the most powerful force in the magic world, now chooses to withdraw from the International Confederation of Wizards. How can this be easily accepted by all the representatives? Mr. Dumbledore, don't we try to keep him? Looking at the back of the wizard representative of the United States Magic Congress leaving, the French wizard representative looked at Dumbledore hesitantly. Dumbledore sighed and said, no need. Let's adjourn. Judging from the hostile relationship between the American wizarding world and the Muggle government, the MACUSA may not be able to accept the implementation of the integration plan. In that case, the International Confederation of Wizards retention would probably be useless, and it would even lose face for the International Confederation of Wizards. Wizard representatives from various countries stood up and left in an orderly manner as they had when they came. However, unlike their joy when the integration plan was passed, they all looked worried after learning that the MACUSA had withdrawn from the International Confederation of Wizards. Lin En did not stand up, but waited until the wizard representatives from other countries left, and asked Irina to sit down with him. The two looked at Dumbledore, who was sitting at the first seat. The International Statute of Secrecy, which has been promulgated for hundreds of years, is an unshakable rock in the eyes of many people. It is still too difficult to smoothly promote the integration plan and finally abolish the Statute of Secrecy. Dumbledore sighed. Lin En nodded slightly, but his dark red eyes were full of determination. He said, but this is something that the magic world must face if it wants to develop. Whether it is the fusion plan or the abolition of the Statute of Secrecy, it is all for the sake of greater peace in the magic world. Irina said softly, the Magical Congress of the United States will not sit idly by and watch us get in touch with the Muggle government, nor will it sit idly by and watch our fusion plan proceed smoothly. We must take corresponding precautions in advance. Hearing Irina's words, Dumbledore frowned slightly and looked at Irina. Irina, do you mean that the Magical Congress of the United States will start a war again? Dumbledore asked in a deep voice. Irina took a deep breath and said, maybe, yes. Don't forget that the MACUSA crossed our border and invaded the British wizarding world 3 years ago. According to Lin, they are using tentative attacks to obtain relevant data on the guard forces of our British wizarding world, so as to prepare for their next war. The withdrawal of the MACUSA from the International Confederation of Wizards is the best signal. The MACUSA has withdrawn from the International Confederation of Wizards. Then as the president of the International Confederation of Wizards, you have no right to order the MACUSA to withdraw its troops in the name of the International Confederation of Wizards. And the MACUSA, which controls a wizard army of tens of thousands of people, oh no, it should be called a mechanical army, is by no means something that other member states of the International Confederation of Wizards can provoke. The result is that the MACUSA will be able to attack any wizarding world with impunity, while other wizarding worlds will be intimidated by the other side's powerful military force, and dare not provide support to the invaded wizarding world. Unless the MACUSA launches an indiscriminate war, but that is impossible. As long as the MACUSA chooses to defeat them one by one, the ostrich-like ministries of magic of various countries will not be able to feel the loss of their lips and teeth, and will not support the invaded magic world at the cost of their own destruction. Irina said in a deep voice. Dumbledore frowned even deeper, and he lowered his head, as if thinking about something. Lin En said softly. According to the information sent back by the Master, the Magical Congress of the United States of America may have created more than one Demon King level wizard in the past 3 years. This means that they may already have top combat power that is not weaker than ours. Dumbledore raised his head, and his blue eyes looked at Lin En. You mean, we still need the power of other Demon King level wizards? Lin En confirmed Dumbledore's guess. He said bluntly, yes, Professor Dumbledore, and the best choice, you know, Gellert Grindelwald. When he heard the name Gellert Grindelwald, Dumbledore's body trembled subconsciously, as if he remembered something. Lin En said calmly, it is true that Grindelwald started a war in the wizarding world, trying to break the international secrecy law and let wizards rule over muggles. The phrase for the greater good made him allow too many sacrifices, which is why you stopped him. But we have to admit that Grindelwald's ideas are not without merit. We want to integrate with muggles and join a common society, but our ultimate goal is still to let wizards live in the sun without having to hide. We are for a better peace in the wizarding world, Lin En said seriously. Dumbledore's blue eyes showed a bit of struggle. Irina said softly, the sins committed by Grindelwald have imprisoned him in the tower for more than 50 years. Of course, this is far from enough to wash away his sins, and it is not enough to explain to the innocent wizards who were harmed in that war. But now, we need him. We need him to join our ideals, because we have a common goal. Otherwise, if the Magical Congress of the United States really launched a war, and we lack the power to resist, there will only be more wizards sacrificed, more innocent people died tragically, wizards will shed more blood. There seemed to be a flash of light in Irina's ice blue eyes. Listening to the words of Lin and Irina, Dumbledore's face showed emotions such as pain, entanglement, longing, love, and regret for not being able to make up for his shortcomings. These seemingly contradictory emotions were constantly entangled on his face. Lin and Irina just sat quietly, waiting for Dumbledore's answer, and they did not urge Dumbledore. They knew how difficult it was for Dumbledore to make this decision, and how difficult it was to revive the heart that had been buried in the midsummer more than 50 years ago. Chapter 773, Mr. Grindelwald. History has always been written by the victors. Nuremberg, the magic world of Austria. This is a cold, dark tower. Even in July, Nuremberg, the tower that imprisoned the first generation of the Dark Lord, is still covered with snow. The golden red flames flashed at the entrance of Nuremberg, and 3 figures appeared here. I'm about to meet an old friend again, Professor Dumbledore. I wonder what you think? Irina smiled and looked at Dumbledore standing in the middle. Dumbledore looked at Nuremberg with mixed feelings. After shaking his head gently, he motioned Lin and Irina to follow him, and walked towards Nuremberg. When they arrived at the door of this towering building, the 3 of them saw a line of words that had become somewhat blurred under the wear and tear of the years. For the greater good. Lin and Irina looked at the line of words thoughtfully, not knowing what they were thinking. Dumbledore felt bitter in his mouth. He stopped reading the words, and took Lin and Irina to the top floor of Nuremberg Tower. It was a cold, drafty room. In bad weather, hail would even hit through the wooden boards on the top. But in such a room, that was completely unsuitable for human survival, there was an old man who was about to die. This old man was the once powerful Dark Lord Gellert Grindelwald, the Dark Lord who almost ruled the entire wizarding world, and rewrote the history of wizards. This lonely room was empty except for a hard bed. Obviously, when the people of the International Confederation of Wizards decided to let Grindelwald imprison himself in Nuremberg, they did not intend to let him live well. In addition to using magic to regularly send the most basic food, which was not even as good as the food of the house elves, to ensure that Grindelwald would not starve to death so easily, they did not provide Grindelwald with any living supplies. This made the old man look sloppy, sick, dirty, and even dying after more than 50 years of suffering. Gale. Dumbledore opened his mouth slightly and called silently, his eyes moistened inexplicably. Ever since he defeated Grindelwald in front of the world, he had retreated to Hogwarts Castle because of his heartbreak, and never saw the boy in the midsummer again. Dumbledore thought that Grindelwald imprisoned himself in Nuremberg to atone for his sins, and should have a basic living guarantee. However, Grindelwald's situation was even worse than the refugee concentration camps in the Muggle world. In other words, if the person living in this cold, leaky room was not a demon level wizard, but a muggle or an ordinary wizard, I'm afraid that the person living here would die in despair. The environment here is worse than Azkaban prison and the newly built magic prison. There are no dementors that absorb happiness here, but there is ice and snow that freezes the bones. Moreover, he has lost his beloved and his ideals have been shattered. Is there really any happiness for him? Exclamation mark. There is no power to seal magic here, but the Elder Wand is no longer in his hand. How can he still have the desire to cast spells when he has lost his dreams and his beloved? Exclamation mark. If he is still willing to cast spells to survive, he will not stay in this harsh Nurmengard. After all, what else can imprison a Demon King level wizard? He imprisoned himself in Nurmengard just because of the infinite sorrow after his heart died. In the cold room, the old man seemed to be aware of something, and he slowly looked in the direction of Dumbledore. However, after seeing Dumbledore's tearful figure, he was stunned. Al. Grindelwald said softly. After 50 years, the frustration, anger, and complaints of the past, the ideals, conspiracies, and careers of the past have gradually disappeared with the wear and tear of time, and what remains is only the memories and longings of everything in that midsummer. Soon, Grindelwald's violently fluctuating emotions stabilized again. He looked at Dumbledore calmly and said softly, Al, to let you come to see me in person, I guess something big must have happened in the magic world. To the point that you, the greatest white wizard of this century, have to come to see me, a dirty despicable sinner? Grindelwald said with a self-deprecating smile. Lin and Irina stood quietly in the distance, not disturbing the first reunion of the old man who had been separated for more than 50 years. Dumbledore looked at Grindelwald in front of him with a complicated expression. He had thought about what it would be like to see him again, but when all this really happened, everything returned to calm. Yes, Gale, something happened in the magic world. After an unknown amount of time, Grindelwald shook his head gently. He looked at Lin and Irina who were hiding in the corner, trying to reduce their presence. Grindelwald said lightly, come out, two young men. Lin and Irina came over then. They both leaned slightly towards Grindelwald and said in unison, nice to meet you, Mr. Grindelwald. Grindelwald looked at the two of them with interest. Even though he had heard some stories about Lin and Irina from Dumbledore and knew that Dumbledore was willing to come to see him, it was also due to the help of these two people. But after seeing how the two reacted to him, he was still a little surprised. He asked, don't you care about my identity? Wizards spit on me and call me the Dark Lord who started the war, but you. Lin interrupted with a smile. You worry too much, Mr. Grindelwald. History has always been written by the victors. If you were the winner, who would call you the Dark Lord? Now, we are also planning to abolish the Statute of Secrecy, whether it is a fusion plan or something else. The Magical Congress of the United States opposes us and is even willing to start a war. So, what if they win? There is no doubt that I will become the Dark Lord, Irina will become the Dark Lord, and Professor Dumbledore, who was once called the greatest white wizard of this century, will also become the Dark Lord. The winner is the king, and the loser will eventually become the enemy. As a former leader, you must understand this very well. Of course, you also know that the reason we come to you is not because we support your ideas, nor because there is any hidden secret about the sins you have committed, but simply because we have a common goal, and we need your help. Therefore, there is no need for us to be like those politicians, pretending to be confused and testing each other. It's better to be straightforward. Mr. Grindelwald, are you willing to join our plan? The price may be your life, but the reward is that your sins will be wiped out in the eyes of the world, and you will be able to return to the Sunday. Lin said softly. Chapter 774. Are you Al's favorite student? Exclamation mark. Listening to Lin's story, Grindelwald smiled and opened his arms, showing Lin his sick and broken body. Grindelwald said lightly, now, even a new aura can easily kill me, let alone a Demon King level wizard. What use can I have to you? In the magical perception of Lin and Irina, Grindelwald's body has long been riddled with holes after more than 50 years of wear and tear. His body is like a sieve, and it can't hold a bit of magic. Even though his Demon King level wizard realm allows him to continuously produce magic, more than 90% of this magic has dissipated into the air, and the magic that Grindelwald can mobilize is less than 10% of the original. Just as Grindelwald said, the power he can exert now may not even be defeated by a new aura. Hearing this, Lin smiled indifferently. As he raised his hand, a golden red flame ignited from his palm and passed through Grindelwald's body under his control. The power of the Nirvana fire was constantly repairing Grindelwald's damaged body. After feeling the warmth coming from his body, Grindelwald couldn't help but look at Lin in surprise. He said incredulously, "Is this equivalent to the healing effect of Phoenix Tears? This kind of flame is probably not any kind of flame in the magic world, but the power of blood talent." Grindelwald said so, and after talking about blood talent, the knowledgeable him seemed to think of something, and he cast his eyes on Dumbledore. Dumbledore nodded gently. Grindelwald then showed a look of sudden realization, and he said, "It seems that it is blood fusion magic. You merge the phoenix blood of the Dumbledore family phoenix, and obtained this special magic flame with the healing effect of Phoenix Tears?" Lin smiled and nodded, and the golden red flame traveled all over Grindelwald's body. In just a few minutes, Grindelwald's body recovered to 80%. However, Grindelwald's next words made Lin break out in a cold sweat. Grindelwald looked at Lin thoughtfully and said, "So, you are Ral's favorite student now, right?" Lin took 2 steps back like a frightened rabbit, waved his hands and said, "Mr. Grindelwald, you're joking. Professor Dumbledore is equally kind to every student. How can I be so self-righteous as to think that I'm Professor Dumbledore's favorite student? You're so smooth talking." Grindelwald chuckled. He moved his almost recovered body and looked at Dumbledore. "I need a wand." Dumbledore handed Grindelwald a wand with a thestral tail feather as a core. Grindelwald waved the wand in his hand gently, curled his lips, and said, "After all, it's not as useful as the Elder Wand." Hearing Grindelwald's words, Irina was fanning the flames and pitying her good friend. "Mr. Grindelwald, the Elder Wand is no longer in the hands of Professor Dumbledore, but in the hands of his favorite student." Grindelwald's eyes suddenly became sharp. He looked at Irina and asked, "Who?" Irina was not afraid of trouble. She smiled and said, "Harry Potter, you who have read the newspapers of the British wizarding world should know his identity. After Voldemort died, Lin and Irina took the Elder Wand back, but the owner of the Elder Wand was still Harry at that time, and neither Lin nor Irina wanted to get the Elder Wand. After all, the Elder Wand is powerful, but it is not the most suitable wand for them. Whether it is Lin's Sycamore Wand, that can bear his powerful flame, or Irina's Ice Crystal Wand, that can bear her icy power, they are rare wands in the world, that can bear the power of their bloodline talents. What's more, Lin's Sycamore Wand is nurtured in flames, and Irina's Ice Crystal Wand is frozen in ice, which can improve their own strength. After 10 years of nurturing, their wands are probably not much weaker than the Elder Wand. However, Harry's idea seems to be similar to this. After getting the Elder Wand, he did not use the Elder Wand, that symbolizes power to fight, but put the Elder Wand in his trouser pocket as a spare wand, and he still held his own wand with phoenix tail feathers in his hand. Since Harry doesn't like the Elder Wand, let the person who likes it, that is, Grindelwald, use it. After learning about the owner of the Elder Wand, Grindelwald smiled and said, "Then I must meet the student that Al likes the most." Looking at Grindelwald's creepy smile, Lin secretly mourned for Harry, and at the same time, felt happy that Harry had a bad friend like Irina. "So, Gale, you agree?" Dumbledore asked softly. He didn't intend to ask Grindelwald about wanting to take back the Elder Wand. In his opinion, Grindelwald still had a certain degree of discretion in doing things. It was impossible for him to use all his strength to deal with a little wizard! Grindelwald's heterochromatic eyes stared straight at Dumbledore's azure eyes behind his half-moon glasses. He said in a low and hoarse voice, "You know I can't refuse any of your requests, Al." Without waiting for Dumbledore to reply, Grindelwald waved his wand like a conductor of an orchestra, and Nermengad's anti-apparition spell was broken in an instant, and Grindelwald's figure disappeared from the spot. Looking at the place where Grindelwald stayed before disappearing, Dumbledore sighed. He looked at Lin and Irina, and said helplessly, "Since he has agreed, there is no need to worry that he will go back on his word. Let's go back." Lin smiled and nodded. He walked up and shook Dumbledore and Irina's hands respectively. The golden red flame ignited again, enveloping the three people and disappearing from the spot, crossing most of Europe and appearing in the principal's office of Hogwarts Castle. At the same time, Nocturne Alley. Harry led a team of 5 Aurors to patrol Nocturne Alley. Since Nocturne Alley was massacred by the Goblin rebels 3 years ago, the Ministry of Magic has strengthened its supervision of Nocturne Alley, making Nocturne Alley no longer a gathering place for dark wizards, but a commercial street similar to Diagon Alley. Harry Potter, I heard, you are Dumbledore's favorite student? A white light suddenly flashed, and a man with heterochromatic eyes appeared in front of Harry. He looked at Harry with an evil smile. Chapter 775. Cruciatus Curse. Harry will kill you. Looking at the man with heterochromatic eyes who suddenly appeared in front of him, Harry was extremely alert. He held his wand and whispered, "Put down your wand. Attacking an aura is a crime." Although Harry said so, his disarming spell was already ready. Harry knew that the man with heterochromatic eyes in front of him was definitely not a good person. You know, after the Ministry of Magic officially took over Nocturne Alley, the same anti-apparition spell as Diagon Alley was set up inside Nocturne Alley. However, this man with heterochromatic eyes ignored the anti-apparition spell here, and it seemed so easy, which even Harry found difficult to do. Harry looked at the man with heterochromatic eyes in front of him with caution. He always felt that the other party looked a little familiar, as if he had seen him somewhere before, but he was sure that he really didn't know him. Just as Harry was thinking about the other party's identity, an aura who looked older in the 5-man team behind Harry exclaimed, "Grindelwald?" The aura's exclamation was like a heavy hammer hitting Harry's head. He just remembered that this man with heterochromatic eyes was the first generation of Dark Lord Gellert Grindelwald who almost ruled the entire wizarding world more than 50 years ago. After learning the identity of the other party, Harry did not hesitate to act. He shook his wrist holding the wand lightly, and 5 or 6 red lights as thick as an adult's thigh broke through the air one after another. Grindelwald walked towards Harry with a chuckle. He just waved the wand in his hand lightly, and all the disarming spells released by Harry were picked up like hitting a fly. Harry's forehead was sweating. He knew Grindelwald's magic level very well. He could not defeat the Demon King level wizard. He wanted to use the special two-sided mirror to ask for help from Hogwarts, but he knew very well that in the battle with the demon level wizard, what would happen if he was distracted. Seeing that Harry and Grindelwald had already started, the 5 Auras all raised their wands to Grindelwald, trying to help Harry fall to the ground. However, Grindelwald just glanced at the 5 Auras lightly, swung his wand, and a stunning spell broke through the air and hit the older aura. The older aura fainted immediately. Grindelwald's stunning spell was not as simple as it looked. 4 consecutive purple lights bounced out from the unconscious aura and bounced onto the other 4 auras. The demon level stunning spell made the 4 auras faint. Next, Harry Potter, let me see what kind of ability Dumbledore's favorite student has. Grindelwald chuckled and looked at Harry. He raised his wand and a dark black magic broke through the air. Facing a being like Grindelwald, Harry naturally didn't care about any rules. He retreated backwards and quickly waved his wand, casting several silent spells. The invisible blade went straight to Grindelwald's neck. Grindelwald raised his eyebrows. This Harry Potter is interesting. He is decisive enough in battle, and is not stingy with the use of black magic. This is much better than that damn Newt Scamander. Grindelwald dodged Harry's shadowless spell. The shadowless spell itself is extremely concealed, so Harry did not deliberately waste magic power to block Grindelwald's movement, but he did not expect that Grindelwald's magic perception would make the silent and invisible blade nowhere to hide. Looking at Harry who was still trying to attack, Grindelwald flashed and disappeared from the spot. Seeing this scene, Harry was stunned at first, and then his face changed drastically. He was naturally not naive to think that Grindelwald, a demon level wizard, would be forced back by him. Since Grindelwald did not escape, the other party's only purpose was. Thinking of this, Harry immediately turned around and pointed his wand behind him. But it was too late. Grindelwald, who had apparated behind Harry, flicked his wand, and a spell with a blue light sank into Harry's body. At this moment, Harry felt that all his senses were infinitely magnified. He could feel the movement of grass hundreds of meters away, and could hear the buzzing of mosquitoes dozens of meters away, and his sense of touch became hundreds of times more sensitive. Heart-piercing. Grindelwald shouted in a low voice, and the dark red lightning was released from the wand that was almost against Harry's back, hitting Harry without any accident. The Cruciatus Curse is an unforgivable curse that brings infinite pain to the enemy and is used to torture the opponent. But now, Harry's senses have been magnified hundreds of times. This also magnifies the pain Harry endures hundreds of times. Grindelwald smiled as he looked at Harry, who was sweating profusely and dying under the pain of the Cruciatus Curse, but forced himself to grit his teeth and stand still to prevent himself from falling. The supersensory curse is certainly a spell that strengthens the body, but it is not impossible to use it on the enemy. It strengthens the enemy's senses, but at the same time, strengthens the enemy's pain. Adding the Cruciatus Curse will be an excellent way to quickly make the enemy lose their ability to fight. Grindelwald said softly. Grindelwald. Harry raised his wand while enduring the pain of the Cruciatus Curse that was magnified hundreds of times. The British wizarding world is not a place for you to run wild. Kill your life. The moment before Harry was about to release the disarming spell that he was best at, the senses that were magnified hundreds of times made his mind quite clear. This made him suddenly have a flash of inspiration in his mind, and the disarming spell that he was originally going to cast also changed. It took Harry nearly 3 years to study the disarming spell, and the advanced spell of the disarming spell that he had imagined became Harry's inner demon, and the step that Harry had to take if he wanted to cross the threshold of the Demon King level wizard. And now, under the hundreds of times of perception magnification brought by the Super Sense spell, the inspiration that Harry had been looking for nearly 3 years suddenly appeared in his mind at this moment. The intensity of the magic fluctuations around Harry was rising at a very fast speed, as if some shackles were broken, and a slight click sound rang out from Harry's body. The rising power weakened the Cruciatus Curse on Harry to the point of being almost non-existent, and the power at the tip of Harry's wand became increasingly terrifying. A thin red beam flew out. This thin red beam was far from being as simple as it looked. This red beam was like the purest red emerald in the world, crystal clear and flawless. End of this chapter. Thank you very much for reaching the end. Don't forget to like. Looking for more exclusive content and immediate access? Subscribe to our Patreon. Remember, every like, subscription, or donation encourages us to continue. Thanks to everyone. See you in the next video.